A report was done 4 years ago making certain allegations. I said at the time that it was political and it was false. 5 district attorneys, Democratic, Republican, short, tall, looked at it all across the state, found absolutely...
Why did he list short, tall? What was the point of that? Fat, slim, big, small, funny, boring, nice hair, not nice hair, smells nice, I don't like smelling them. They all said I'm great. The thing about this is it's not just any mayoral debate, obviously. It's New York City, and it's also, which is like, you know, arguably one of the most relevant cities in the world. I wouldn't call it the greatest. I think that's a little bit of them jerking themselves, but it's an important city. And more importantly, the reason we're covering this is that Zohran, this would be historical. Like I said, this would be the most progressive candidate to have an office of that level, right? Not just like one of the most progressive mayors probably elected, but like the most powerful mayor ever elected possibly too. And that's pretty crazy. It'd be pretty historic for somebody that progressive to get such a powerful role in America. So that's very historic. We haven't had an opportunity like this since Bernie was running for president. We haven't had any kind of opportunity like this almost in our lifetimes. So the way I thought about it is I'm not going to let myself not cover this. And like, I need to cover this. It's important enough. I need to cover it. Even though a lot of it's bullshit, even though a lot of it made me mad, even though I wasn't making fun things on Minecraft or whatever, it was worth watching. And I think in 2 days now, because it's the 12th now, I think in 2 days, voting begins I think the cutoff to register is maybe tomorrow even. I'm not sure. But the 13th. So anyway, so if you know anyone in New York, tell them to be voting for Zohran. And yeah, we'll cover the next one after this, basically.
Crushing costs, pushing New Yorkers out. Crime concern.
The cost of housing. Sorry, I have to pause it already. The cost of housing, the cost of goods, the inflation we're seeing right now wouldn't be a significant issue if wages were increasing with inflation. As like that's how we're designed to have like a pretty normal, steady amount of inflation, but also like the economy is also designed that wages need to increase with that, and wages haven't increased with inflation since 1979. So the idea that costs, if you're talking about housing costs and the concentration of housing and the lack of rent control or public housing, like the desire to keep making house prices inflate, yeah, that's an issue because they're house prices. It's not like the houses are getting any better or becoming more valuable. You're just inflating the price so you can charge people more for it. So that's an issue. But when they show eggs and stuff, that starts feeling like corporate propaganda already, because it's like, it's not we already subsidize our farmers a shitload for the food they produce. Like, it just is expensive to produce animal products. And you just need to have higher wages to match that. But of course they don't want to. Like, it, instead of saying like the principal issue, especially because like in in New York, people are renters, right? And obviously housing prices lead to higher renting prices, but like
Crushing costs.
That should say stagnant wages. Yeah, no, the costs are very high, right? And they're increasing. But the principal issue behind that is that the wages in cities like New York and LA have not kept up. Like the inflation of like food and stuff has been pretty steady for like 40 years now, and the wages have been stagnant. So it's like when you show these produce and you're talking about crushing costs, it's more like crushing wages. It's more like the businesses are crushing people by not paying them enough. That's like the actual issue, the main issue going on with that. So this should say stagnant wages, not crushing costs.
Pushing New Yorkers out. Crime concern.
Crime concerns. Okay, this is, do I even have to explain why that's propaganda? You know, crime tracks with inequality. The more inequality, economic inequality you have, the more like very rich people living next to very poor people who can't afford to eat or live and shit. Yeah, crime goes up. But again, the fundamental problem there is growing inequality. It should say stagnant wages and growing inequality, not crushing costs and crime concerns. Anyway, let's see if we can get through a couple more seconds. Already, though, I just want to say this seems like a very fascist, I'll just say, framing for this. Yeah.
From the subways to the streets. Fears of deportation in a city built by immigrants.
Can't say no to that. But I mean, how are you going to complain about the deportation without complaining about the broader trend of fascism? Like, this is my issue. Back in the 30s, at least you had like the German media being like, yeah, fascism is the best. Like, at least they didn't bullshit. Like, this media station is afraid to say fascism. They won't, like, it's like, how can we frame that so it doesn't seem so true? Then they go, oh, we'll just talk about deportations. Also, so many jobs now and less major ones that require years of tuition is like part-time everywhere. Oh, you're saying that most jobs are part-time everywhere. Yeah. They'd rather not pay somebody full-time and have benefits and stuff.
The greatest city in the world.
It's not even softening the language. Like, softening the language would be like the specter of approaching fascism or something like it's not even, it's like just obfuscating fully. It's like softening the language and redirecting attention away from the actual issue. Okay, the greatest city in the world, by what metric? I don't know. It's not the most diverse. It's not the richest. It's obviously not the most equal. It's not the cleanest. It's not the safest. By what metric? I think Babylon is the greatest city in the world. I think you guys are full of shit. Come back when you have 4,000 years of empire to talk about, huh? I don't know. It's not New York. And I don't think New York is the best at anything now. Just my opinion.
At a tipping point, with challenges from Washington Heights to Washington, D.C. Who will lead the way? Is the city's next mayor? Live from Rockefeller Center, the first Democratic primary debate for New York City mayor. City Council Speaker Adrian Adams. Former State Assembly.
I don't know who that is.
Blake.
I don't know who that is.
Governor Andrew Cuomo.
I know. I don't want to know who that is.
Brad Lander.
I don't know who that is.
Assemblyman Zohran.
Yeah, that's our guy. That's our boy.
Senator
That's our guy.
Zelnor Myrie.
Okay, we don't know who that is.
Jessica Ramos.
She is terrible.
Scott Stringer. And
She was supposed to be progressive. She endorsed Cuomo recently, and everyone hates her. I think her campaign's in major debt. Like, they're getting into legal trouble because they didn't pay a venue or something. So it seems like she basically gave in and endorsed Cuomo to try to attract some of her backers, or his financial backers, to get her out of trouble. Anyway, she's a fake, unfortunately. She seemed pretty decent for a while, but yeah, that Jessica Ramos person, I do know who she is, but not for good reasons, for bad reasons.
former hedge fund manager Whitney Tilson.
Oh my god. former hedge fund manager should be automatically disqualifying to be in Democratic Pride. Like, you shouldn't be allowed in the building. You shouldn't even be allowed in the audience. Never mind on the stage. Okay.
Sponsored by News for New York, Telemundo 47, Politico, the New York City Campaign Finance Board, and NYC Votes.
Like, why not just say, like, Wall Street goon? Like,
Here now, News for New York anchor, David Ushery.
Good evening, everyone, from 30 Rock, and welcome to the first Democratic primary debate for New York City mayor. I'm joined by my colleague, News 4 Government Affairs reporter Melissa Russo, Sally Goldenberg.
okay, so right away, I want to point this out because this is something I heard. Melissa Russo here is, like, really close friends with one of Cuomo's staffers, and she's constantly retweeting that staffer as, you know, as that staffer, like, spreads racist propaganda about Zohran, and that staffer's family are on Twitter like, hey, can you stop posting, like, you're giving our family a really bad name in your attempts to, like, take low blows to support Cuomo kind of thing. And meanwhile, this reporter is, like, openly retweeting it, like, saying, I agree with everything this staffer says, even when she's, like, being racist towards Zohran. And it's like, not only is that journalist allowed to, like, keep her job and continue reporting, but they actually let her moderate the debate. So I just want to point out, because we're going to see it over the course of the debate, but this lady in the blue is, like, part of the Cuomo campaign, basically. She's not there as, like, as an independent art, like, you know, impartial person. She's gonna, like, lay it in on Zohran. Anyway.
Senior New York editor for Politico and Telemundo 47 anchor.
Politico is really corrupt, so we can expect her to do a lot of bullshit, and I think Telemundo just won't challenge anything. Like, they don't challenge power. So already we can see we're set up for, like, pretty terrible moderation overall.
Rosarena Breton. This
Politico is owned by a Trump supporter. They, like, pretend to be vaguely leftist, but she's basically owned by Trump media. This lady in the white, this lady in the blue is like pro-Trump media, not literally Trump, like Truth Social media, but like a billionaire backer of Trump's is who her bosses answer to. And then, yeah, we have a bestie of the Cuomo staffers. So looking great so far with our debate here.
2-hour debate.
This is very professional and very serious, and you should, like, respect these people for their opinions and stuff.
Live on all NBC, New York, and Telemundo 47 streaming and digital platforms. Politico.com, Telexitos, and YouTube. This first hour also live.
They took it down off YouTube, like, a few days after it came out. I think because Cuomo looks really bad, and it took me over 15 minutes just to find this debate online, just to find a webpage that was still hosting the full debate, because they seem to have scrubbed it off of pretty much everywhere except for the NBC website, which is crazy. If you're going to have private companies hosting a public debate, like an official debate for the election, you can't just, like, have them host it and then have them take it down because they didn't like how some candidates looked or something, right? Like, it's very sketchy. The debate obviously needs to stay up there for the public to see. But yeah, this was quite hard to find. They're kind of burying it a little bit, seems like.
On Channel 4, the leading Democratic contenders are here tonight. Their positions on stage were chosen by random drawing. Few rules for the candidates for
by random draw, except Cuomo's still right in the fucking middle, the best place.
Question and answer. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Fuck them, honestly, fuck
30-second rebuttals at the moderator's discretion. We'll also be asking some questions where we're looking for shorter answers. A lot of ground we want to cover, candidates. And
okay, so the first thing I notice is that this guy's white sneakers look dumb with his suit. I'm sorry. I think he's not one of the worst candidates, but come on, man. Like, his dress pants don't fit him. You see how they're all loose? I shouldn't, like... But, like, if you're gonna wear a boring suit, you should at least wear one that fits you, right? I wouldn't care if he was in, like, a hoodie, but if he's gonna wear a suit, I don't know. The rest of them look like they're pretty put together. Yeah, I don't have no notes about the rest of them.
To cut off your microphone if you ignore the rules, but of course we don't want to do that.
I just wanted to point out the one guy looked kind of dumb.
And for New Yorkers to hear everything you have to say. Good luck to you all. We'll begin with Melissa Russo.
In other words, he's not a threat. He's not a threat because he looks funny right now with his white sneakers and his like loose blue dress pants. The rest of them still in it, I would say. Not voted off the island in my head yet.
David, good evening, everyone. It's good to have you. We're going to begin tonight with the issue that...
Sorry. Let me make one thing clear. The hedge fund manager guy was never a competitor. He was never allowed on the island because he's a hedge fund manager. So he was the first to be eliminated. And Weird Shoe Guy is going to be the second to be eliminated. And we'll see who's the third.
Polls show is #1 for New Yorkers, and that is affordability. The cost of everything is squeezing residents.
Why would you run in the Democratic? Well, I'll tell you why. He's not running because he wants to win. The hedge fund manager is running to like pull the whole discourse to the right and just to like obfuscate and like run distraction and create division on the left. That's like the whole reason they run. They're just there as plants. That's why he's there. Anyway.
Take years to build, and we'll get to your plans on...
Not plants of the Republicans specifically, just plants of Wall Street, plants of capital in general.
That a little bit later in the debate. But right now, we're interested in how you would help residents immediately. So what's your one big idea to make the city more affordable now, and how will you pay for it?
One big idea.
We'll begin with you, Ms. Adams.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me this evening. You know, I'm actually the only candidate on this stage who is actually doing the work already. We have a housing plan already. I have built and delivered 120,000 new units of housing. And now with the new proposal that we have in front of us, we have over 80,000 new units of housing that will be coming up and will be affordable to the people of the city of New York. New York is not affordable. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and I want my children to stay here, just like real New Yorkers want their children to stay here.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. I
think building houses alone doesn't address the problem, because like it doesn't address it. You could build a lot of houses and address it in the short term, but if you're not like trying to rein in the market, if you're not like preventing like a few, like most apartments are owned by one of 3 companies in America now, right? And if you're not going to like stop those massive real estate companies from buying all the apartments and renting them out, then you're not addressing the underlying problem. Like the cost of housing will still keep increasing. You'll have more houses. It might increase a bit slower, but you're not like, that's not like a full plan. That's not like adequate. What she's saying isn't like a solution.
remind everyone, this is a 30-second answer.
And she knows that. She knows that.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brad Lander. I'm the New York City Controller. I'm a lifelong affordable housing activist.
I kind of like this guy. He seems kind of weird, but I kind of like him.
And I'm a proud Brooklyn dad. Tonight, I'll show you that
he does seem like a Brooklyn dad.
I'm the only one in this race with the progressive values to make this city more affordable.
I don't like that. If you're running on a ranked choice ballot, why would you be like, I'm the only progressive here? You're just going to piss off all the supporters of the other progressive candidates.
With the public integrity to sweep away the corruption of Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, and with the proven management experience, having already...
No, sorry, I see what he was saying. He was the only one with the progressive values, the integrity, and the management experience. So in other words, it's a dig at Zohran for not being experienced in public management, whatever that means. I see what his little angle is. All right, fair enough.
Affordable homes to actually
I'm not canceling him yet.
Promises I'll get 500,000 homes built over the next 10 years.
Okay, we're going to move on to Ms. Ramos.
500,000. See, he's a little bit 500,000. The first lady only said like 130, 150,000. So I think he is like positioning himself. He's like positioning himself the way what was that dude's name? Who was the Yeti guy? Remember the old mayor, Bill de Blasio? He's like positioning himself in that lane, I'm pretty sure, of like yeah, I'm kind of progressive and stuff, you know. He's kind of doing that shtick, I think.
The question is, what is your one big idea to make the city more affordable?
He's like a Bill de Blasio Democrat, is my
now, and how
impression.
will you pay for it? 30 seconds, Ms. Ramos.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening. Buenas noches to everyone watching at home. Thank you so much.
This is the lady who endorsed Cuomo, even though, I mean, you can see her Twitter posts like six months ago, I don't know, less than that, like 3 or 4 months ago, saying that Cuomo was basically a SA guy and should resign because of what he's done to women and all. Like he should resign from public life basically, and he's not a valid candidate and he's corrupt and all this bullshit. And yeah, she just endorsed him. So I just want to say that to say trust exactly 0% of what this lady says. Yeah, trust exactly 0% of it. You can go look up her tweets from a few months ago on Cuomo. It's insane. She must be in real legal trouble because it feels like she threw away her career with this endorsement. Like, people actually saw her as progressive, but yeah.
Much for holding this forum. Affordability has been top of mind for New Yorkers since before the pandemic, but the pandemic only exacerbated the conditions for New Yorkers. This is why I set out as chair of the Labor Committee in the New York State Senate to raise the minimum wage, to tie it to inflation, and I'm proud
a real
to be the
policy.
last person to have done that. I'm the only
That's a real
person on this
policy
stage tonight who has already had a desk at the mayor's office, and this is why I know that the first thing I want to do on day one is enact a mental health emergency so that we can keep our streets safe.
Okay, Ms. Ramos. Mr. Myrie.
Wasn't that a question about housing? Anyway.
Your big idea, I haven't heard many big
It's
ideas.
Shoe Guy.
So if you can answer the question, please, in 30 seconds. Your big idea to make the city more affordable now.
What's up, Shoe
and
Guy?
How will you pay for it?
Thank you, Melissa. I don't have one big idea. I have 3. I want to deliver 1 million homes over the next 10 years. I want universal after school for every kid in this city from age 3 to grade 12.
Okay.
And I want to extend pre-K and 3K past 2:30 p.m.
Either this guy is a plant to, sorry to interrupt him so quick, but just listening at the first 2 proposals, free pre-K and after school care, that's like something like the Social Democrat, the lefty parties would support in like Europe and Canada and shit. That's like, this is like, he's the leftiest so far. I'm not saying he's the best because it's like, as far as I know, he might just be a plant. You know, kind of how like Elizabeth Warren ran really hard in 2020 to kind of divide the left and take, like, a lot of her backers were like bad faith Wall Street people who just wanted to prop Elizabeth Warren up to take away votes from Bernie Sanders. Like, that was kind of, Kamala did that for a while too. She was running as like super progressive to try to basically take votes away from Bernie. I kind of see that as potentially what this guy is like. Jill Stein is another good example. She's basically like the Green Party in the States. Unfortunately, in America, it's basically like a Russian asset at this point. And I'm not sure if this guy fits into that but it's also a ranked choice ballot, so it's hard to imagine, like, unless he starts attacking Zohran, I'm gonna assume that he's not trying to divide the vote, because it doesn't really make sense to try to do that on a ranked choice ballot, right? Ranked choice, everyone would say Bernie 1, Elizabeth Warren 2, or Elizabeth Warren 1, Bernie 2, right? So you don't get to like split the progressive vote that way. So he's probably genuine. I hope he's not being like, you know, it's clear at this point Zohran and Cuomo are the only 2 real candidates in the race. So if I was a progressive, I would just endorse Zohran at this point, right? I wouldn't be trying to like make my own little platform happen. So I question the strategy here, but I think this guy's like probably actually bad shoes guy who I disqualified for his bad shoes is probably the second best guy in the race, honestly.
To 6 p.m. My parents came here 50 years ago, worked in factories to put food on the table where union members sent me to public schools, and that's how I became a state senator and why I'm standing on this stage tonight. That same opportunity needs to be restored for so many New Yorkers, and that is why new leadership is needed, not the leaders of the past that caused the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Myrie. Mr. Cuomo.
Like, that was solid. That was
Thank
good.
you very much, and thank WNBC
Oh, no.
for hosting today. And
The vampire himself.
I'm running for mayor because I think the city is in real trouble.
Because he hates all of
We
us.
have a management crisis between the Adams and Lander administration. I think we have a
You've been the manager. You were the fucking governor. What's wrong with you? We have a management problem, says the governor.
fiscal crisis where the city is actually spending more every year than it is taking in. And I think we have a societal crisis where we have division and
Oh, are you going to fix that?
Raise the minimum wage, put more money in people's pocket, more child care, after school care,
Mr.
and then,
Cuomo.
of course, build affordable housing.
More child care, build affordable, like the least specific plans, like the shittiest least he didn't offer
I was
anything.
the HUD secretary. I know how to do it.
Oh, you were the housing and urban development secretary under Obama, and that's going to be why you think you're in a position to fix the housing like they oversaw the housing crisis. Like you can literally track it. Obama came into power when the housing market crashed and the house prices were really low. The fact we've gotten to this point is like more Obama's fault than Trump's fault, right? Like housing was already completely unaffordable by the time COVID happened in 2020. There's been a lot more economy housing market under Democrat control than there has been, and this isn't like unique to American, Democrat liberal type parties. That like the centrist parties all over the world like generally behave the same. But it's crazy to me that he's not scared of mentioning that he was the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Like, he's the dude saying, like, oh, the city's falling apart, there's crime on the streets, we don't have housing. By the way, I was in charge of that stuff for 15 years. Like, what the fuck? Or 8 years or whatever. A lot of daycares and after-school programs in schools are becoming less and less in Texas. Oh, that is messed up. I mean, especially when you, like, these far-right people like to complain about the birth rate. They're like, oh, nobody's having kids anymore. It's a white genocide. They're replacing us. They're replacing the whites. Americans can't have kids anymore. They want to replace us with foreign illegals, all this bullshit. And then, like, those same people don't support universal childcare, don't support universal health care, don't even support public schooling at this point. It's like, you need to give people, don't support higher minimum wages. Like, you need to give people the resources to have families if you want them to have families. It's not that complicated. Like, and obviously, like, this kind of goes without saying, but if it's something that everyone needs, like, housing, but specifically with childcare too, like healthcare, and babysitting and all that kind of stuff. If everyone needs that, then it's obviously more efficient to do it publicly. Like, it's more financially efficient to do it publicly than to have it all divided and have a bunch of middlemen, taking money, like the healthcare insurance companies and stuff like that. So it's like, at every level, the Republicans make it harder to have kids. And meanwhile, they complain about dropping birth rates. It's kind of hilarious. We had an after-school program that got cut due to funds being removed from the district. No more pre-K too, which is crazy. Wow, that is crazy. 'Cause yeah, most I feel like it's becoming pretty standard even in America. Like in America, like let's be clear. Most developed countries already have universal pre-K. That's not like a thing that other countries don't have. And it seems like America, especially like by the time Biden was in office, America was finally starting to catch up to that of like having universal pre-K. It's crazy. And I thought it was becoming a standard, even kind of like Republicans were realizing, like, yeah, if we have pre-K, our children become more educated. And I mean, really, the biggest incentive for them is just that frees up parents to work, right? If you don't have to take care of if you can send your kid to school a year early, in effect, that means a lot of parents are free to work sooner. So that's better in that sense. It's better for the economy. But keep in mind, these are the same Republicans, the Trump Republicans, the fascist Republicans, the Greg Abbott Republicans. They are intentionally trying to crash the economy in a way that maximizes the suffering of poor people. So I honestly think the biggest reason, it's not even that they don't have the money for pre-K. I think they would prefer forcing parents to stay home and look after their toddlers for an extra year, just so that those families end up being poorer and like struggle more going forward. Like, I think that's it. Unfortunately, I think that's literally how people like Trump and Elon Musk think, is like, how can we make things more difficult for poor people so that they're less able to resist us? Some of the best teachers had to leave with this news, and so many helped me, like 5 people that were absolutely wonderful. Yeah, it's crazy. It's not sustainable, right? Like, that kind of stuff can't just continue happening. Pre-K truly closes the gap. It is absolutely amazing, the amount of work being done there. Yeah, I mean, they're important years in development, and like, you know, even in the best case, maybe not the best case scenarios, but even in terms of like the parent being able to work and find childcare or whatever, you know, like, you hope that the parent doesn't have to work and take care of the child, because like the child probably isn't then receiving like the stimulants and the attention and shit that like a young child needs, right? Like, it's good for kids when they're like small to like be engaged in doing things and like learning about stuff, and it's kind of crazy to, you know, it kind of sets things back to take that away.
Thank you. I'm turning it over to Rosarina.
Thank you, Melissa. Bienvenidos a todos. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're going to ask the same question again, but please listen carefully. You have 30 seconds to answer. What is your one big idea to make the city more affordable now, and how will you pay for it? Again, 30 seconds, Mr. Chilson.
None of them have talked about how they'll pay for it. None of them have said that.
It may take a couple of years, but...
Now, don't get me wrong. The how I will pay for it thing is like a concern troll Republican. Like, the idea that you can't make the city more affordable for people without putting like the city in debt or something, it's crazy. Like, you just freeze rents, that doesn't put the city in debt, there you go, store it, like, case closed, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that's like baked into the question, it's such a loaded question to imply like, what are you going to try to do to make things better, and how are you going to pay for it? Because clearly we all know that it's going to like bankrupt the economy to do anything good. Like, that's like baked in, that's a baked in assumption to the question, right? So I don't blame all the candidates for ignoring it, because they're running for a Democratic primary. Why would they like fall to the bad faith, you know, Republican frame? Anyway, that was the best moderator. That was the Telemundo lady. So I'm pretty sure. So if that's our best moderator, we're not in good shape. The rest of the moderators are worse than that. Actually, I don't know about the NBC guy, but I assume he's pretty crappy.
I think we need to address the housing crisis. Most of the people on this stage have called to freeze the rent, but I want to go one better.
That's not even true. That's like, I wish most of the candidates had called to freeze the rent. As far as I know, Zohran is the only one calling for that. So he's saying he wants to go one better. Okay.
I think we need to drop rents by 20% by unleashing the private sector to build.
Oh my God. He just wants to deregulate everything. Let's take away building codes. Let's take away environmental standards. That'll make housing cheaper. We'll just let all the people do the same things, but they'll make more money. Great job. Great idea, Mr. Wall Street. This guy's disqualified. I already said that. He's
lot
super
more
disqualified.
housing. This isn't pie in the sky. New York did this 100 years ago. Austin has done it just in the past 3 years.
Austin, let's be more like Texas. Great idea.
So the key is, though, is to ease the zoning restrictions and all the other regulations that are tying.
Thank you.
Let's destroy all of our all of our old public buildings and put up high-rise premium condos that wealthy immigrants or wealthy people from wherever outside the city can come in and buy and live there, and then we'll get more property taxes from it. That's what this guy wants. Like, when he says remove zoning laws, he just means let's destroy every historical building so that like billionaire real estate developers from Saudi Arabia and Mar-a-Lago in China can make a buck. You know,
Mr. Toast, thank you very much. Mr. Mamdani.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
There's our dude.
We are live here in the most expensive city in the United States of America. 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty, and I am running to be your next mayor.
He's already so much better than everyone else. Do New Yorkers even know 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty? Well, they do now. Thank you, Zohran.
Here to make this city affordable. I will do so by freezing the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants, by making the slowest buses in the country fast and free, and by delivering universal childcare. And I will pay for.
So saying he'll freeze the rent is infinitely better than saying I'm going to build more houses but not freeze the rent. Right? Infinitely better. That's an infinitely better policy. That actually that actually make things more affordable. It doesn't just provide more overpriced housing, but it actually, yeah.
In the most expensive city in the United
Sorry,
States
I just
of America.
rewinded a bit. I want to hear
1 in 4
his
New
things.
Yorkers are living in poverty. And I am running to be your next mayor to make this city affordable. I will do so by freezing the rent.
So freezing the rent again. He's the best on housing. He's the best on affordability. That's the best policy.
For more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants, by making the slowest buses in the country fast and.
Okay, and investing in public transit is like anyone who has a brain and has read information on the subject understands that America's public transit is garbage and there needs to be massive wide-scale investment in it, right? China and Japan at this point are over 50 years ahead of the US in terms of public transit, which is crazy to think about. There's no way NYC is the best city in the world because it doesn't even have modern transit. It's a joke.
And by delivering universal childcare. And I will pay for this by taxing the 1%.
And he's the only candidate who actually answers the question, the bad faith, how are you going to pay for it question, but he directs it towards the 1%. So not only is the best on policy, he has been the best communicator. He did the best job. He answered that question perfectly. The rest of these politicians, if they sat down and they tried to think of a good answer for 2 hours, they wouldn't have come up with as good of an answer as he just did on the spot. Okay, that's the difference of levels we're talking about here.
The billionaires and the profitable corporations that Mr. Cuomo cares more about than working class New Yorkers, I will ask them to pay their fair share so we can have a city that everyone can afford.
Thank you so much for that, Mr.
Look at his smile. What a guy.
Mr. Mamdani, how will you convince Albany to pass that tax increase? Because from what we've heard from Governor Hochul, it's not really something.
That's cool. Again, this is this lady's besties with one of Cuomo's staffers. She's like, wait, Zohran, you're not gonna pay for that. The rich people don't like that.
Thing that she's thinking about doing. How can you guarantee that will happen?
So I have experience in this actually because in my first year in the state legislature, I came to Albany where we had a governor then who didn't want to raise taxes on billionaires and corporations. That was then Governor Cuomo. And we actually overcame his objections, raised $4 billion in new annual revenue, and finally funded the very public schools that he had starved for so many years.
Thank you very much. We have
savage. Every time they let him speak, he's just shitting on Cuomo. He doesn't just give the right answer, but he also can give an answer that shits on Cuomo simultaneously. He's so good at this. He's so good. This man is a talent. This man might be your president in America, someday. He is so talented. Like, I don't know where he's been hiding. We needed him a while ago. He's perfect. His answers are perfect.
I have to go with Mr. Blake now.
As a South Bronx native family of Jamaican immigrants, the way we actually address affordability is by ending credit scores and increasing income limits for housing applications and having universal child care that is
Increasing income limits for housing application. That seems like sketchy. I don't know about that. What was the first thing he said? I don't know about this guy.
and increasing income limits for housing applications and having universal child care that is happening.
Oh my God, the scroll bar is so tiny.
And finally, start for
applications and having universal ending credit. Immigrants, the way we actually address affordability is by ending credit scores and increasing
ending credit scores. Ending credit scores. That's not really the issue. Yeah, I don't know.
And having universal child care that is happening not just after school but throughout the weekends. We pay for this by having a vacant apartment tax for those that are not living in New York City.
It's okay, but it's very technocratic. You're not really like, it feels like tweaks around the edges. It feels like this is gonna make like some small group gonna make things a little bit easier for some like small group of people without like addressing the larger system. So I don't know. He did say universal childcare on the weekends as well, though, so he's kind of interesting. It's like either this guy or that one of the first guys. The guy who I said was like Bill de Blasio, him or this guy are like the third place candidates in my mind. But Bad Shoe Guy, I'd still give it to Bad Shoe Guy over this guy.
By withholding taxes to DC that Trump tried to take against us and making sure, as much as I love the Knicks, and I'm sorry they...
And let's be clear, the gap between 1 and 2 is huge here.
That is how you pay for it.
It's like Zohran is 1 and there's a huge drop to 2, and then Bad Shoe Guy, Bill de Blasio guy, and this guy are all kind of like in that mix. And then the rest of them seem to be quite a bit below that. Although we haven't heard a couple of them, so maybe the last 1 or 2 will be cool.
That is how we have affordability.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Stringer.
I want to actually put forth a program that can get done for young families and for the people who built this city. And it's very simple. We need to use city-owned vacant land, 1,000 properties, and transform that land into affordable housing. That property should go to not-for-profits, to limited profit developers, not the luxury developers that fund Andrew Cuomo's campaign, but the developers that can actually build the Mitchell-Lama 2.0 that we need.
Okay, this dude seems like an old dude who's like fed up with how incompetent Cuomo and a lot of the Democrats have been. This guy's been through shit. He's like, enough of you guys. Like, I don't even think he's tremendously, like, left. I think he's probably just, like, more pissed off at the Democratic establishment in New York. Yeah, shit on Cuomo, that's right. This guy's an ally. We'll give this guy... I don't know. I'm tempted to give this guy number 2 now. Yeah, you know what? I'm giving him number 2. I trust this guy more than the others.
We owe it to the people who built this city and are now fleeing the city because they can't afford to live here. And we need to welcome the next generation of New Yorkers who will be here if we give them hope and opportunity and affordability.
Thank you.
Like, if he's a plant, if he's a bad faith actor, he's doing a really good job of it. He seems like an actual guy, so I'm gonna give him number 2 for now.
Mr. Stringer.
Sally Golden.
Thank you. Now let's turn to President Trump, who looms large over the city, given his proposed funding cuts and his interest in hometown affairs. Democrats say they want a mayor who will stand up to him. Mr. Cuomo, you've branded the president a bully. Mr. Stringer, you called him a schmuck. And Mr. Lander, you put his name on a car and pushed it in a TV ad.
This is such a New York
Voters want to know how you will
insult.
actually deal with the president if you are elected mayor. We have questions for each of you, and you'll all have 1 minute to answer. Mr. Cuomo, we'll start with you. You have experience collaborating and battling the president. Currently, his Justice Department is investigating you, following a criminal referral from Congress alleging you lied during testimony about your involvement in a report that undercounted nursing home deaths during COVID. With that probe underway, how do you ensure voters that you would not be compromised in your dealings with the president if you were elected mayor?
Yeah. Well, this is what Mr. Trump does, right? He started an investigation against me, against Kathy Hochul, against Senator Chuck Schumer, against Hillary Clinton. This is one of his tactics. I know how to deal with Donald Trump because I've dealt with him before. Many times, we've had many encounters. We fought on a daily basis through COVID, and I won many of those battles. I fought him on ice. This is not the first time he's brought ice to New York. He's done that before, and we fought him. And
just so we're clear, when Andrew Cuomo was governor, he would usually pass bills with the support of the Republicans. So how the New York state legislature worked was that the Democrats always had the majority, but then there was like a small caucus, like a relatively small caucus of Democrats who were like the blue dogs, the moderates, and Cuomo was part of this caucus, and they would side with the Republicans basically. So Cuomo, for years as governor of New York, gave power over the legislature and the laws to the Republicans. He was like a plant there, basically, to make sure that Republican legislature was getting passed, even in a state that was overwhelmingly Democrat. Like, that was his role as governor. So let's just be clear about him as some kind of, like, I'm glad that he has to spend his time bad-mouthing Trump instead of Zohran here, but the idea that he's going to stand up to Republicans is hilarious. Like, the thing he's most famous for in New York politics is being the Democrat who, like, works with the Republicans over his own party. Okay? Like the levels of bullshit, and of course the moderators aren't going to say anything because they're plants, right? Because they're on his side. But, like, yeah. A real moderator would be like, didn't you pass a lot of bills with the Republic? Like, that would be the follow-up here, right? It's a much more obvious, urgent, important follow-up to say to Cuomo now, wait, didn't you, like, pass a lot of bills with the Republicans? How do you reconcile that with being anti-Trump? Like, that's a much more important follow-up question to ask than asking what Zohran is going to do if the governor doesn't let him tax rich people or something like that. Like, insane.
We won. So he can be beaten, but he has to know that he's up against an adversary who can actually beat him. And I can tell you this, I am the last person on this stage that Mr. Trump wants to see as mayor, and that's why
That's not true. He's like the first person that Trump wants to see as mayor, because Trump can use that investigation against him to blackmail him the same way he did with Eric Adams. Unlike Cuomo, Zohran doesn't have a bunch of sexual assault cases in his history, and corruption cases and stuff. So you can't really trap Zohran with legal methods the way that you can trap Cuomo here.
I should be the first choice for the people of the city to have as mayor.
To follow up on that, though, Democrats also raised some concerns about your testimony, so it wasn't only Republicans. But just putting partisan politics aside for a minute, how would you respond to voters about the congressional findings of your involvement in that report?
Yeah, first, putting partisan politics aside is virtually impossible nowadays. It's so toxic out there. The issue of COVID became a political football right away. It still is a political football.
So let's be clear. Partisan politics is toxic in the age where one party is openly fascist. But if you're like partisan against that party, you're the one being toxic. We do not stand a gaslighting king. people. We just don't.
Between Democrats and Republicans, and even within the Democratic Party and within the Republican Party. And it's unfortunate. We should have been learning from the experience and finding out how we could be better prepared for the next time. But unfortunately, in this toxic environment, it's been nothing but politicized over and over again.
Okay, we have to move on, but I just want to add that the question was, how would you respond to the allegations? But we have to move on.
Melissa.
Okay. Mr. Mamdani, you have...
We have to move on. We're not... The question was about allegations, Mr. Cuomo, and we know you didn't answer it, but we have to move on. They're so shitty.
Said that Mr. Trump's Department of Justice can't be trusted, and that was after the news broke of Mr. Cuomo's alleged reported DOJ investigation. First, quickly, just a yes or no answer. Do you think that President Trump is unfairly targeting Mr. Cuomo?
No, I don't think that it's unfair, but I have no interest in believing that they're actually pursuing justice.
Okay. Second part of my question.
And to be clear, it's not unfair because Andrew Cuomo did lie to Congress, but ultimately we know that the Trump Justice Department and the Trump administration as a whole is interested more in vindictiveness and persecution of political enemies than in anything to do with justice.
Okay.
That is a perfect answer. I know he prepared for that one, obviously, but he is so perfect with how he describes things. Like, yes, I believe that Andrew Cuomo did commit crimes, but, you know, I also believe that Trump isn't really interested in justice. Perfect answer. Perfect.
Moving
no
forward,
notes.
you are also a socialist. And because of that, why wouldn't President Trump...
This lady hates him. Have you noticed how the only time this blue lady talks is to be aggro on Zohran? It's the only time she's talked so far. It's crazy.
Trump target you and by extension target New Yorkers? You have 1 minute.
President Trump will target whomever is the next mayor of this city. President Trump even targeted his...
Like, can she seriously ask that question? Like, you're a socialist. Don't you think Trump is going to come after you? And then New York, like, the Republicans were calling Obama a socialist when he passed the healthcare plan that Mitt Romney had, like Obamacare, the single payer or single mandate, individual mandate system. Mitt Romney, his challenger, had already passed that. It was Newt Gingrich's healthcare plan when he was the leader of the Republicans in the House in the 90s. Obama passes that Republican healthcare plan, and, you know, since then he's been a socialist, basically. And the news media is not stupid. They know this, but they still ask these questions because they're just trying to make people scared. That's the only reason.
Is in many ways accomplice, Mayor Eric Adams, who has collaborated with the Trump administration at almost every opportunity. And still, in the midst of that collaboration, we saw that New Yorkers are being taken off the streets in their apartment building lobbies. We have $80 million being taken out of our city bank account. So I don't think there's any question that there's any mayor here that will be free from being attacked by Donald Trump. What's more important, however, is that we have a mayor who will actually fight back.
And I was thinking about this, like, could the whole situation in LA that Trump is causing, could that be partly to distract from this mayoral race? And that was one thought that came into my head, but also I feel like Trump, like, and maybe what the Trump regime is like banking on is that the media coverage of what's happening in LA is going to be so biased against the protesters that it's not going to like produce any backlash. But like if paying attention to politics internationally, right? Like looking at the elections that Canada recently had, for example, and how the Liberals were like losing by 20 points, and then Trump went on his tariff war. Similar thing happened in Australia. The Liberals, or like the left-leaning party, was set to lose, the Centre Party, to some fascist, you know, far right-wing dude. But Trump had caused such a disaster with his tariffs and everything that the public in Australia and Canada shifted against, you know, their conservative, their fascist guys really, really drastically in a really short amount of time. And so those fascists ended up losing because Trump has been been doing such a loud, bad job. I think the protests in LA should be similar in a way, where on one hand, just having LA dominate the news cycle, it takes away attention from this mayoral race. And that's good if you want Cuomo to win, because Zohran is very quickly catching up to Cuomo. But if you black out, if like the way they did with this debate, if you take this debate offline afterwards, like off YouTube, if you make sure nobody's paying attention to these kind of things, then yeah, Cuomo's gonna win probably. So from that point of view, it seems like part of the value of the riots in LA is to distract from this very important mayoral race so that Trump can get Cuomo in and then blackmail Cuomo. That's like the idea, I think. But that's assuming that the media coverage of what happens in LA doesn't cause a backlash among the general public. And that's something that the Trump campaign, or like the Trump camp, I guess, regime has underestimated. It's more than just like the regime, the people in the government, though. You know what I mean? It's their backers outside of the government and everything. Like Elon Musk isn't officially part of the Trump regime, but everyone would understand him to, you know, be part of that camp. They've underestimated how much backlash can occur in the past, though. So I wonder if like what's happening in LA is going to scare people in other American cities enough to support Zohran. Interestingly, I think the last polling I saw said that 55% of like Latino voters in New York are Cuomo supporters. I have a feeling that's because a lot of them are older, probably, but it'd be interesting to me if, given what's happening in LA, there wasn't some effect of, you know, we better elect somebody like Zohran who's actually going to resist Republicans rather than somebody who has a long history of working with them, like Cuomo. But I don't know to what extent people are really like educated on this or informed. Like obviously the media is not very helpful, so it'll be interesting to see.
And that's what I will do. I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in. And the difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo is that my campaign is not funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump in D.C. I don't have to pick up the phone
such a good point.
for Bill Ackman or Ken Langone. I have to pick up the phone for the more than 20,000 New Yorkers who contributed an average donation of about $80 to break fundraising records and put our campaign in second place.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani, thank you. Mr. Cuomo, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, please. You know, Mr. Mamdani is very good on Twitter and with videos, but he actually produces nothing. For him to accuse me of lying.
He's so mad.
He also called President Obama a
He
liar.
produces nothing. What do you produce, Cuomo? Do you produce sexual assault cases? What do you produce? What's your productive output? I want to know.
Evil. So take everything with a grain of salt. Donald Trump would go through Mr. Mamdani like a hot knife through butter. He's been in government 27 minutes.
Projection.
3 bills. That's all he's done. He has no experience with Washington, no experience in New York City. He would be Trump's.
Unlike me, who's been ruining this city and this country for decades.
Delight.
All right, brief response, Mr. Mamdani, then we have to move on.
Look, it's true that I don't have experience with corrupt Trump billionaires who are funding my campaign. I don't have experience with party politics and insider consultants. I do have experience, however, with winning $450 million in debt relief for thousands of working-class taxi drivers and actually delivering it to the working-class people like me.
Thank you, Mr.
That's a lot of money.
Mr. Lander,
That's a lot of money.
You presented yourself as a tough-talking Trump resistor, but as mayor, you're expected to deliver, including aid for the city. So how can you do that if you're always at war with the president? You have 1 minute.
Look, when Donald Trump and Elon Musk stole that $80 million from New York City's bank account, I uncovered it, I rang the alarm bell, and I forced the mayor into court to get it back. You stand up and fight. You go into court when you are in the right. 1 week after he was elected, I became the first financial officer anywhere in the country to lay out where all that federal money comes into our budget with a really concrete plans for how we put money in reserve so we'll be able to respond. But look, with all all the corruption that's in Washington, we can't have corruption here in New York City as well. It's not only that Andrew Cuomo lied to Congress.
He's okay. This guy's fine. He's whatever.
The grieving families whose loved ones he sent into those nursing homes to protect his $5 million book deal. That's corruption. That's what I crushed in that junkyard. So when I'm mayor, I will stand up to Donald Trump. I will make sure that we've got a budget that's ready. So when they come for our Medicaid, we've got an independent authority ready to keep providing reproductive health care, housing, and education for
Mr.
all.
Cuomo, would you like to respond?
Yeah, please. Mr. Lander is a little loose with the facts. If he wants to talk about the facts on nursing homes, we'll talk about the facts. He's just parroting.
Oh, yes. Please talk about nursing homes.
I said it
which
long
were
before he
actually
did.
disproven by the federal government now.
Which ones are you
New
talking
York-
about specifically?
In terms of the rate of deaths in nursing homes, New York is number 38 out of 50. Number 38. Only 12 states had a lower rate of death, which is really something when you consider that we had it first and worse than anyone else. And when it comes to corruption, Mr. Lander knows corruption because his office approved $500,000 of contracts to organizations associated with his wife, which he said his
But
deputy
I would really just like to
approved,
clear
even
one-
though the deputy reported to him.
$150,000? Dude, you're taking money from Trump's billionaires. Is that really a lie? Okay, whatever. Whatever. He doesn't have shit on... He obviously doesn't have anything on Zohran other than, you're new here. Kind of. Like, or he would say something, but whatever. If he wants to throw crap at this Bill de Blasio impersonator, whatever.
I would just like to clear one thing up,
It's
Mr.
part of the
Cuomo.
corruption
Okay.
of the city.
It's a lie, and you know it every word.
Yeah.
Lies
I hear
all the
you.
time.
But the question is whether or not it's political and whether or not your congressional testimony was truthful. Were you, now that you've had time to reflect, involved in producing that report that undercounted those nursing home deaths?
Oh, there was no doubt that my administration produced the report, and it did not undercount the deaths.
Okay, but
It
you're still
counted-
saying you were not involved in producing it.
It's very clear. That's the Trump line, the MAGA line, right? Because this was during the Trump reelection.
Okay.
The New York reports always counted the number of deaths where they occurred, in a nursing home or in a hospital.
Okay.
Now that all the dust is cleared.
Okay, we have to move on, though. We have to give other people a chance.
that
We'll
all
all
the
have a
dust
lot
is
more
clear,
time on other subjects.
answer the question.
to talk
Yes or
about.
no?
It's a very easy answer.
All right, hold on, candidates.
Did you
If
lie
you're all-
She's trying so hard to help him.
I mean,
He's trying so hard to help
Did you lie
him.
to Congress, or will you acknowledge the
All right, Mr. Cuomo, we need
15,000
to-
people died, and he still won't answer your
I won't
question?
answer.
All right, here's a chance to answer the question as Melissa presented it.
Yes.
Mr. Cuomo.
No, I told Congress the truth. No, we did not undercount any deaths when they are.
Can we just have the whole debate be this?
38 out of 50, which I think shows that compared to what other states went through, we had it first and worst, and that only 12 states had a lower rate of death. We should really be thanking the women and men who worked in those
Mr. Cuomo,
nursing
just-
homes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very quick yes or no follow-up, if I may. Just the question is, were you
Turning off mics is like not good in debates. Like, you're supposed to be able to moderate well enough that you don't do that, and it's like an implicit bias if you're like muting certain candidates, right? Whether like no matter how hard you try. So I feel like they especially in Democratic primaries, it would look very, dare I say, conservative and undemocratic to be muting people's mics. But the truth is, they don't really need to turn off mics when every person asking questions is asking it from a right-wing framing, and like, you know what I mean? Like, the moderation already isn't impartial, so like they don't really need to mute the mics, I don't think, right? They got the whole thing rigged in like bigger ways, I guess.
involved in the producing of that report? It's just a yes or no question.
But yes, I mean, technically, if they were good moderators, they could mute the mic in a way that could be productive at some point. But like, they're just bad moderators. So I don't know. I think they just don't mute the mics because it's better. Like, it looks better. It's better PR for them if they don't. Makes them look more legitimate. But yeah. they're very illegitimate in the sense that they're not impartial moderators to begin with.
Aware of the report I spoke.
And yeah, like I said, there's no need to worry about. You don't have to worry about as much of what the candidates are able to say or not say if your moderators are super, partial and are going to steer things and cut people off when they want to anyway and say, we were asking about allegations, Cuomo, but you didn't say it, but we don't have time. We're going to move on. By the way, Zohran, will you sign a blood right to Israel?
At press conferences.
No, before it was
multiple
released,
times,
Mr.
and I
Cuomo, the
stand
question is
by
about the
report.
production of the report, the creation.
All right, I think
Okay,
I
we're going to move on. We're not getting an answer. We're not
I
going to.
stand by the report.
It was just whether or not you were involved.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Mr. Meyer, Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul.
They're trying to help him so much.
Former Governor Cuomo has as well. As mayor, what experience would you bring to the table with President Trump?
Well, let me just say to the people watching at home who are afraid to send their children to school, to the families who are afraid to show up to court proceedings, seeing agents snatch people up doing the right thing, I want to speak directly to you in this moment because you're not hearing that communication. You're not hearing about a mayor that is going to stand up and have the backbone to stand up for our city. I'm the son of 2 undocumented immigrants who came here for opportunity. My parents could take me to school. They could take me to the hospital without fear of deportation because they knew the city would have their back. That's the kind of mayor that I'm going to be, one that stands up when necessary. Of course, we're going to work with the president when it's in the best interest of the city. But what he has demonstrated over these past 6 months is that he is not interested in helping the city. We have to grow our tax base so that we can be independent from the federal government. And that's why I have a plan to deliver 1 million homes over the next 10 years.
We have to grow our tax base. And that's why I have a plan to deliver over 1 million. So the only way that homes help with the tax base, a growing tax base, is because you're paying property taxes, which, relate to the price of the house. So you have to, if you want to grow the tax base, with housing, then you can't lower the cost of housing. You have to, the cost of housing has to keep increasing. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't trust this guy anymore. He's lost his spot. Bad Shoes guy has lost his spot. That's a very neoliberal framing. Grow the tax base by building more homes. So you're just saying we're going to try to have more expensive homes that we can tax. That's not good. That's not good.
It's why I want free after school for every kid in this city, and it's why I want to extend pre-K and 3K to 6 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Myrie. Rosarina?
Thank you, Melissa. Ms. Ramos, vamos a hablar de Trump ahora. You talked about fighting President Trump, but you also said in a campaign questionnaire that you seek partnership with him. How do you envision working together with him? You have a minute.
We have already seen a very clear blueprint about how to elegantly school President Trump. And we saw it in Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum and how she led on negotiating the tariff scandal with the president. And so I'm here to say that not only should my administration litigate to protect immigrants, to protect gender-affirming care, but we should be ready to withhold our federal taxes when Trump unlawfully takes away funding from the things that we need. We have to play chess and we have to be smart, and our taxpayer dollars are our leverage.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
That's not really saying anything. Like even Newsom is like, yeah, we'll withhold taxes, federal taxes, if the federal government tries to cut California off. It's not saying anything at all. Even the most corrupt Democrats, even the most conservative Democrats would do that. If Trump was, creating a conflict with them like that. So it's not really anything.
Mr. Stringer, the next question goes to you. Fighting Trump has been a key element of your campaign. Is there anything that Trump wants that you will be willing to give him in exchange for something that the city needs? You have a minute.
What?
Look, this is why it's so critical.
That was a weird
to elect a
question.
mayor with real experience negotiating, experience understanding what the stakes are here. Look, Donald Trump is coming for New York City. He's hell-bent on collapsing the social safety net. He wants to pick kids off the streets, but he also wants to destroy everything we've built in America, in this city. So I know how to fight him because I fought him and Trump won.
What they should do is turn off or like turn down the mics, or like have a sound filter on the mic so we can't hear all the moderators like flipping their papers and like scratching their pens and stuff. It's not the candidates who need to be muted, it's the moderators.
When he was coming after us, I managed to divest $4 billion from fossil fuel. I divested from private prisons.
Listen to all that
divested
paper
from
ASMR.
gun manufacturers. He didn't slow me down. He sped me up. But right now, we need a mayor who's going to put aside $1 billion in a very, very rainy day fund. We need a mayor who's going to insist that the banks and the next controller come to the table and strategize about how we have a short-term plan to get the city to the congressional elections. No one has more experience in city government and knows how to do that than
But Mr. Stringer, the question is, if he wants something in exchange, will you give it to him?
I'm not quid pro quoing with Trump. What I'm going to do, and this is my strategy, is I'm going to organize the same thing that happened during the days when Ford said to New York, drop dead. We're going to go to the business community. I'm going to go to our congressional leadership, Schumer and Jeffries. I'm going to organize this city and the city government to wage a fight in Washington to protect the epicenter of the national economy,
Thank you very
which is
much.
New York City.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Mr. Tilson now. And the question goes to you, saying,
I don't get
you've
that.
been blasting Mr. Trump since 2016 when you call him El Diablo in Spanish, the devil, as mayor. How can you make a deal with him? We're talking about a pact with the devil.
Look, I think I've been fighting Trump and Trumpism since long before then, since he came down that escalator 10 years ago this month. And but I do think we Democrats have to stop giving Trump gifts, like when we let ourselves be defined by our far left, by socialists.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes, the problem with the Democrats is that they're defined by socialists. That's what everyone thought, right? When Kamala lost to Trump, that's what everyone, it was because Kamala was a socialist, right?
Defund the police nonsense and open borders, etc. One area that
no Democrat is there's not a single Democratic politician who runs on either defund the police or open borders. That is not a thing. No Democrat politician talks about that. That is just Fox News. This old dude watches too much Fox News is what I'm gathering here. I don't really think that's true. I think he knows he's lying. I think he is just a Wall Street goon, and he's here to cause interference and concern troll about the left. He's insane. Completely insane.
I do agree with Trump is that when a socialist like Zohran here tweets that the NYPD is, quote, wicked and calls to defund and dismantle the NYPD, that is madness, that is costing us elections, and it's why Trump has doubled his share of the New York City vote in the last 3 elections from 17.
So what percent of Americans do you think voted on defund the police? What percent? Well, yeah, Zohran isn't wrong about the NYDP, obviously. But yeah, he's trying to use that to attack him. I don't know. But the argument here is so weird. We're gonna lose. He's saying we lost the election to Kamala because of defund the police, and that's why we can't have Zohran because he wanted to fund the police, or he wanted to defund the police. But Zohran is running a mayor's election in a guaranteed, like, the only person he could lose because of the defund the police stuff to is Cuomo. There's not you can't lose to the Republicans over that. So this premise of we're losing elections because of the far left, it's not even relevant in, you know what I mean? Like, he's not this guy's not saying that defunding the police would cause problems for New York. He hasn't really said that. He said it causes problems in elections. But that's not relevant for this race, right? It's just concern trolling. Like, it has nothing to do with anything. I just hope people are not stupid enough to listen to this and think that this is like a reasonable person making like honest, legitimate points, because it's complete nonsense. It's honestly nonsense. He's like, this guy's equally as nonsensical as like any Republican would be on this stage.
Percent to 30%. We've got to move away from the far left and the socialism that's sinking our party and our city.
Brief response, Mr. Mamdani.
I want to be very clear that police have a critical role to play in creating public safety. And when I speak to those very officers on the beat, in the rank and file, I hear from them a frustration that where they join the force to tackle serious crimes, we are instead now asking them to play the roles of mental health professionals and social workers. And that is why we are putting forward a plan to create a Department of Community Safety that will tackle gun violence, homelessness, the mental health crisis.
All right, Mr. Mamdani, we might get to some of those issues. I just wanted a brief response to
It's critically important, and I think it's important in a moment when we have a candidate to my right who is absolutely mischaracterizing anything that we've put forward in this campaign.
You can check his Twitter feed. He has not deleted the tweet that
Check
calls
his
the
Twitter.
NYPD wicked, get him, defund and dismantle the NYPD. It's still up.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Oh my God. What does that have to do with Trump, you weirdo?
Highlight your past roles in the Obama administration and in leadership of the national.
I'm just putting this forward, but at a time when you see what's going on in LA, do people really think that defunding the police would be a bad thing? If you're scared of Trump as a New Yorker, you should probably defund the NYPD, because you know that when Trump decides to crack down on New York, the NYPD is gonna survive or side with Trump. The arguments are so bad, it's like hard to understand. The conversation was about, we're worried about New York because Trump's gonna come after it, and then this dude is saying the socialists are sinking New York. There's no socialists in power in New York, but the socialists are sinking New York by defunding the police, which they haven't done because they're not in power, and even if they were, the police haven't been defunded. But that's why New York is in trouble, not because of Trump. He just ignored the whole conversation they were having just to fearmonger. It's crazy.
Democratic Party, which has since lost the White House and is struggling to regroup. How does that make you effective when it comes to negotiating with President Trump if you were mayor? You have 1 minute.
Well, as the only person on the stage who's been a part of a team that has actually defeated Donald Trump, and as a black man who understands that Trump goes after black folk, that's the exonerated five or Barack
I'm
Obama,
a Biden guy.
He will win.
I'm a Biden guy.
To make sure we address what's happening in.
Isn't he also part of the only team that lost to Trump? Isn't that? Just saying.
New York City. First and foremost, anytime Trump and Elon try to take our funds, we will withhold taxes and sending in D.C., specifically working with companies that have contracts in New York City and say, you will not abide by unconstitutional behavior. Second, we will ban ICE at our schools and our places of worship. We will designate them as safe havens because there is no reason at all that ICE is going after our immigrants, in particular families like mine from Jamaica. Third, since I have White House experience under President Obama, State House experience locally, as well as what's happening as a reverend and a community leader, you need to understand that there is someone right now who can lead New York City. You have heard people now not be able to answer the question, but they're saying they.
What does real leadership mean? Does real leadership mean canceling credit rates and increasing the income for affordable housing applicants? Dude, shut up. What the fuck?
Can actually represent you. I am ready from day one because
what
of what
leadership?
From the White House to the State House to your house.
Leadership to this guy means like doing a little dance on the Titanic as it's sinking. He's gonna lead some synchronized dancing and probably later some swimming once the whole thing sinks altogether.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blake. Thank you, Mr. Blake. Ms. Adams, your most powerful campaign supporter is New York Attorney General Letitia James, an arch rival of President Trump. How would you ensure that you, and by extension New Yorkers, are not a casualty of their war. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned the Attorney General. She is the most notorious, the baddest Attorney General that New York and the nation has ever seen. And yes, she does endorse me. You know, when the name Donald Trump comes up, the first thing that the advice that I get from the Attorney General is that when Donald Trump comes your way and causes problems for New Yorkers, sue him. That is exactly what I am doing right now as we speak. We have an executive order that is in front of us that is illegal, that Mayor Eric Adams had his first deputy mayor sign. The mayor didn't even sign it, but the first deputy mayor signed it. And it would allow ICE to come onto Rikers Island, Donald Trump's ICE, to come onto Rikers Island, which has been illegal since the year 2000.
I don't like the Donald Trump's ICE framing.
Order that Judge
like as if ICE would be good under
valid.
somebody other than Donald Trump. I don't like that.
Will win. I will always be a mayor that will stand up for our immigrants. Donald Trump's ICE has no place on Rikers Island.
No, ICE
has no place pulling our
ICE shouldn't exist in general. It's not about Donald Trump.
Now, no rights.
Thank you.
Not in my New York.
Thank you, Adam.
10 years before Donald Trump was in
Let's turn to public safety.
politics,
The top concern for
ICE
many New Yorkers,
still shouldn't have
especially
existed.
underground on the subways, which so many New Yorkers rely on to get to work. We're seeing fewer robberies and overnight 2 cops on every train, but still many New Yorkers simply don't feel safe on the subways. We'd like to know what plan each of you have to change that. You have 30 seconds, and we're going to change the order and start with you, Ms. Ramos.
Thank you, Sally, for the question. You know, right now, we want to make sure that we are recruiting and retaining police officers. This is why I'm offering a workforce housing initiative to make sure that we help them be able to keep New York City their home. We want to attract them here. I want to increase their entry-level pay. I want to stop investing taxpayer dollars in RoboCops and toys and actually think about the officers themselves. But we have to assess deployment and upskill our EMS workers to respond to mental health emergencies.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Mr. Myrie.
Thank you. I take the train every single day. I took the 5 train to this debate. So I'm experiencing exactly what New Yorkers experience, and that is things feel different on our subways. People tell you that you shouldn't believe what you're experiencing, that the numbers are down and that you should feel more safe. But that's why people tune out of politics. Are the facts. Things feel different, so here's what I want to do.
The thing that creeps me out about this guy,
teams,
he seems very passionate. He seems kind of like authentic.
I want to ensure that everyone feels safe.
But I don't know if he's a socialist.
And I want to ensure that we do that on my first day.
We're at time. Thank you.
Like, I don't know if he's actually a leftist or actually...
Yeah, part of it is we have to admit what we did wrong. The people on the stage...
I just want to say, like, somebody who gets, like, really, like, invested in like, you know, politics obviously, and like wants to see themselves as some kind of progressive leader, but then like, you know, won't take, it's almost like an Elizabeth Warren thing. Like, I'm starting to get Elizabeth Warren vibes from that guy. It's like you're kind of saying the right things, but like you're not putting it within a context of we need to stop these billionaires and, you know, we need to stop these rich, wealthy interests from control, like, etc. He's not, I don't know. It just makes me feel like if you were genuinely that into politics and like trying to be progressive, you would just be a socialist at the, like, how do you not get to that point? Like, unless you're just, you know, trying to project progressivism for your own career interest, which is, you know, I don't know. I'm not saying the dude's like a fascist or like, you know, I'm not saying he's lying about his beliefs necessarily. I'm just saying that, like, if somebody's like genuinely very deeply interested and passionate about those things, then they would probably be a little bit more like Bernie or Zohran in terms of their, you know, their philosophy and their politics and all that. It's interesting. Yeah, they should probably update. I mean, the subway is safer the more people are using it, right? Like, if you don't have people using it, that's when, you know, so I feel like just, yeah, making the subway a better option for more people, and, you know, instead of like paying so much money for security in the subway, they could just like they could just like make the subway cheaper, and then more people would use it and it would be more safe. There you go. Isn't that amazing? Almost like they don't want that.
Almost without exception, we're all defund the police. Mamdani dismantled the police, reduced the police by 3,000, $1 billion in overtime, and now they're calling for more police. We wouldn't need more police if we didn't defund them in the first place.
They were never defunded. The NYPD was never defunded. That was never a thing, Cuomo. You're being a Fox News grandpa right now. That wasn't a thing.
In my first 30 days,
they've been fine.
Every homeless person off the trains and the subway stations and get them the help they need. We did it before. We can do it again.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo.
We're going to fact check that he literally said defund the police himself when he was governor. All right.
We're coming around to you.
This is the third
True.
time he's literally lied about everyone on stage.
We're
coming around. We'll get to this.
Are you saying you didn't? Andrew, are you saying you didn't say defund?
I never supported defund the police.
Are you saying you never said defund the police?
I never supported.
Can you just answer the question?
I used the words defund the police.
Again,
I said I don't support.
I use the words defund the police. I'm telling you, I don't support it. Please. This is why they took this debate down. This is why it took me like almost 20 minutes to find this thing, because they don't want people seeing this shit.
Just said everyone else did that, but you would not acknowledge.
Mr. Cuomo, did you say?
He did.
All right, hold on, gentlemen.
Did you say that it was a legitimate school of thought?
This is so funny.
I think that Mr. Blake may be talking about something you said, which is that.
Dude, Zohran's looking clean right now. Like every time there's like an issue, every time there's a little drama and somebody looks like an idiot, Andrew Cuomo is the one right in the middle of it. It's like Zohran's he's getting off pretty clean so far. Like he's just giving good answers and there's not much to attack him on. He's like Bernie. He just has a good record. Like he's never taken a bunch of money or like molested somebody. So you don't really have much shit on him, unlike a lot of, these prominent candidates.
Both are legitimate schools of thought. Defund or don't defund.
And
you gave it some legitimacy in public.
I disagree with defund.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Picking up.
And I'd still like to respond.
We're coming around.
We'll be
What
coming,
a baby.
we're coming around to everybody.
Mr. Tilson.
Look at this guy.
I'm fully supportive of the increased police presence in the MTA.
Oh my God.
In fact, transit crime is down this year. It shouldn't be, I shouldn't have to say this, but the key to reducing crime is fully staffed police that are out there in.
It's not. Like, that's not just a matter of opinion. He's being anti-scientific. Any criminologist, any sociologist, anyone who studies these things can tell you that crime is linked with, like, inequality and poor access to public services and education and things like that. The way to reduce crime is not more policing, and that's like objective fact. Anyone who studies crime knows. Like, when I say this guy is as nonsensical as a Republican, I mean it. These capitalist liberals are like 100% as nonsensical and deranged, and he'll say he believes in climate change and vaccines, I imagine, and shit like that. But when you get down to like what the core of his message is focused on, the core of his message is 100% as much bullshit as what the Republicans are pushing. Like that's a conspiracy theory, basically. The idea that you reduce crime just by you eliminate crime by having more police, that's not how it works. Like, since the modern study of sociology and criminology, like that, the point of those whole fields of study is understanding the reasons people are motivated to do crimes, right? And the reasons are never there's not enough police. There's always some other need or some other demand behind the actual crime, making people want to do that crime. So this is just he might as well be saying the earth is flat. Because as far as the science is concerned, this dude's off his rocker. Like, grandpa needs a nap. I don't know what's going on.
enforcing the laws, and we need to make crime illegal. And this is now happening down on the subways.
We need to
where
make
they are
crime
starting to
illegal.
enforce
What a
the
brilliant
lower-level
position.
crimes, quality of life crimes.
Oh my God.
Drinking, smoking, spreading out over the subway cars.
Okay,
and police are arresting more. And it turns out
I
that
can't
30%
handle
of
this
the people
guy.
they are arresting
He sucks.
have criminal records of more than.
Okay, I'm sorry. We do have to move on. We're at time.
Can this be like one of those game shows where you can like open the floor under somebody and they like fall away? Like the audience gets to vote, or so the other contestants get to vote, maybe? God. It's so bad. I want to see like a water balloon drop on his head and for him to fall. Like he should be disqualified. These aren't like good. Yeah. Wah, wah. These aren't good. It's not a good answer. You're kicked off the island.
Mr. Mamdani.
In my Department of Community Safety, we are going to put together dedicated teams of mental health outreach workers who will be deployed to the top 100 subway stations with the highest levels of mental health crises and homelessness. We are actually going to address this in a manner that goes beyond the same ideas that we hear time and time again, recycled by the same politicians like Andrew Cuomo, who brought us to this point. And if we care about the police force, then we have to actually listen to police officers. They are leaving this force, 200 of them each month. And when you ask them why, it's because of the forced overtime. And part of the reason that that is taking place is we're asking them to respond to every failure of the social safety.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
The people who don't feel safe
They
are
cut him
young
off with
women,
every answer.
mothers and grandmothers around Andrew Cuomo. That's the greatest threat to
Maybe they've let Zohran finish like one of his responses, but almost every time they cut him off pretty aggressively and they like don't let him finish his sentence. And they haven't done that with Cuomo. They let Cuomo speak over time, and then they say, okay, you didn't answer the question, but we have to move on. Like, the attitude is so different.
Public safety in New York City. Now, specifically to your question, I have said very specifically, we need 1,000 mental health professionals on our subways and streets. And so therefore, you can have police then with body cameras on, go do precision policing outside. The police will indicate they were not trained on addressing mental health. Let's utilize those persons who need the help immediately. If we take those steps, then we can also make it a point to help make sure everyone gets home
Mr.
alive.
Blake. We're going to move on to
This guy's smart.
I
I don't think the Blake guy's very progressive, but he's smart. He's not like doing right-wing framing.
At home have to be incredibly
So I don't know.
They defunded the police. They reduced
They
the number of
defunded the
They're not
police.
saying we need more police. We should
Cuomo,
have
do you
reduced them
want
in
to
the first place. And we need mental health experts to address the homeless,
Would you
mentally ill, and we do that.
Well, at
by
least they
getting
all
them
agree
off
about
the
that.
train so we can assess them and get them into
Mr.
mental
Cuomo,
health
would you
care.
like to respond to Mr. Blake's
Every
comment
woman
about
watching
sexual
tonight should
harassment?
listen right now
All right,
that Andrew Cuomo would not respond when had a chance about sexual. Every woman watching tonight.
Please, because apparently 54% of women in New York still favor Cuomo and only 46% favor Zohran. And that's crazy, especially because most men, like it's the opposite. It's 53-47 in Zohran's favor for men. So I don't know why. I don't have I'm not gonna like try to come up with a theory. I have no idea why. But yeah, women are breaking towards Cuomo, and it is gross because he is not a friend of women.
He was just given a chance to actually address the clear claims that were stated and ignored it.
Okay, we do have to move on because we have other candidates on stage.
I really like this guy, though. I think this guy's playing the long game. He's not trying to win right now. He's trying to like set himself up as a potential real alternative to Cuomo in the future.
Jim, we want to hear about
even though he probably isn't.
Mr. Stringer, can we please hear about your subway safety plan?
Absolutely qualified.
Gentlemen, listen.
We're moving on from this question.
I gotta love, though, that even this very moderate Biden-Obama staffer dude is, like, spending his time attacking Cuomo. The only one who spent all his time attacking Zohran is the hedge fund dude. And the hedge fund dude is, like, that's why he's there. That's his job, is just to, like, obfuscate and create division. And, like, he's paid to be there. That's his whole thing. That's all he's gonna do. right?
We will
You had
cover
an
a lot of
opportunity
ground.
to respond. Mr. Stringer, please tell us your subway safety plan.
Kids, it's grown-up time, so just give me a second, okay? Let me straighten this out for you.
Appreciate that.
No, you got it, man. So look, we're spending $1.3 billion in police overtime because we don't have enough police officers. We have the lowest police count in a generation, so we need to hire 3,000 more cops. But in order to get them, we have to go into our communities and get the wonderful, diverse citizens to come into a department, but we also have to make it worthy of doing it. That's something I'm going to do. But look, I will say this to you. The crisis that we have is twofold. It's not just about policing. It's about also helping the people who
He just lost his number 2 status, by the way. He just lost it.
suffer from mental illness, and we have to align policing with the mental health initiative. Why Andrew Cuomo has the nerve to talk about defund when he signed the bail reform bill with loopholes that you didn't even read the bill?
Mr. Stringer.
That is something that really caused the crime problem in our
Word time, Mr. Stringer. Ms. Adams.
Thank you so much.
Like, yeah, he's not number 2. I think Bad Shoes, like on paper, Bad Shoes is number 2, based on what he says, but I don't. He's almost too good to be true in the sense that if the Bad Shoes guy really believed what he was saying, he should probably just endorse Zohran, and I haven't really heard anything to that effect. So he does give me like Elizabeth Warren trying to mess with Bernie Sanders vibes a little bit. And then other than that, the second, so if it wasn't going to be Bad Shoes guy, it's just the Bill de Blasio dude. I forget his name, the one over on the left. He seems like fine, I guess. Like he wouldn't stop the ship from sinking, but it would like sink much more slowly and maybe allow more people to evacuate. I don't know. That's the analogy I would use.
To address this claim that everybody's called for defund, I have never called for defunding the police, and I never will. In the 2021 budget of the City Council, we were in a season of COVID.
This is just a neoliberal. She's never
reallocated. Their funding had to be
This lady hasn't offered a real solution yet.
The police department, but many. The City Council, our funding was even reduced during that season of COVID. But my public safety agenda calls for police to be taken out of social work and mental health, for our police to be paid what they are worth. We have always supported a budget that reinforces our police department.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. We're at time. Mr. Lander, again, the question is about looking forward, your subway safety plan.
Yeah, I've got a dear friend whose middle school daughter, who takes the train to school, was pushed to the ground by a homeless person with serious mental illness. This is a big deal for all of our families, which is why...
It's such a stupid anecdote, okay? He's losing points too. You know what? Bad Shoes guy is bad. I don't trust any of them except for Zohran at this point. Bad Shoes guy's in second. This guy's in third, I think. Yeah.
I have a ready on day one, detailed, clear plan to end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness. We don't have to be a city where a couple thousand of our mentally ill neighbors cycle from subway to street to hospital to jail and back again. It's a plan called Housing First. It will work. I do have to go back, though.
By the way, for anyone who's watching, please tell anyone you know in New York to actually go out and vote and like participate in this primary. Because it's close and we need it. We need Zohran. This would be the most progressive person ever elected to like a big office, and like this would be the most power a progressive has ever had in America ever. Okay? We should I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Bernie has been a senator in Vermont, but like mayor of NYC is a big deal, man. We need this.
Because in the prior round, the former governor told a lie sourced from Twitter about my wife. And when I go home tonight,
oh my
I'll be able to make clear it's 100% false, and he knows it.
Thank you, Mr.
Mario
Lander.
Cuomo obviously campaigned and voted.
Thank you, Mr. Lander. We're going to move on.
Oh, they won't let him bring up the Cuomo spice. The moderator's like, no, you said the word. He who shall not be named, you do not say that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. We're going to let Cuomo staffers Bestie ask some questions now about crime from a right-wing perspective. They haven't asked any questions from a left-wing perspective at all. The closest they've gotten is like, how will you deal with Trump? Which isn't like left-wing. It's just like anti-Trump.
Please don't talk. Please don't talk. We're going to try to get as much in as we can.
Please don't talk.
Wife, I'll be good the rest of the time.
Thank you. Okay, we are all familiar with what it's like to try to buy toothpaste or beauty products at the local drugstore and having to wait for it to be unlocked. Shoplifting is a sad fact of life in this city right now, and many in law enforcement blame bail reform, since most
This is such a right-wing anecdote. Like, I'm sorry. Is the issue that New Yorkers facing right now that they have to stand there an extra 15 seconds while somebody unlocks the thing so that they can, is the scourge of shoplifting really at the top of your mind as a New Yorker? I don't think it's in the first 100 issues. This is such a small issue. We obviously shouldn't be devoting any time to this. This is pure propaganda.
shoplifters can no longer be held in jail. So they get arrested, they most often receive a ticket to appear in court, and they're usually released to steal again. That's how law enforcement describes it again and again. So we have a few specific questions, and you're going to have 30 seconds to answer. Mr. Cuomo, we will start with you because you signed the bail reform legislation. Governor Hochul has made some changes since you did that. Do you think bail reform is...
Like, she's here. The only time she'll criticize Cuomo is like, you're not conservative enough, Cuomo. Again, this lady's besties with one of Cuomo's staffers. She's always retweeting all the staffers like anti-Zohran posts, even though that staffer's family is saying you're embarrassing us with this shit. This lady's all on board with it. And she finally had, instead of what she's been doing most of the debate, which is like trying to grill the progressives, mostly Zohran, and one question for the other dude, the dude who was just talking. And I think it was him. And now she has a chance to ask Cuomo something. And the only thing she's willing to ask Cuomo isn't about the deaths. It's not about the sexual assaults. It's not about the corruption. It's not about working with Republicans. It's not about having the same backers as Trump. It's not about his performance as governor. It's about, why did you let those brown people out of jail? That's her question. Thank you, lady.
Working, and how would you stop shoplifting and other low-level repeat crimes? You have 30 seconds.
Yes. Just to go back, if Mr. Landers says his office didn't approve 500,000 contracts, that his deputy approved, affiliated with his wife's organization.
Every word a lie.
The deputy reports to him.
Why is
every word?
I think it's so funny that Cuomo's like attacking, like spending time attacking. Like, they're not your competitors, bro. I hope Cuomo loses. It's so pathetic. They also clearly hate him, and like, he's so petty. He can't like let one little thing go, even from like a guy who's like not. He's punching down, right? He's attacking people who have no chance of beating him, and it's just like, I hope he loses. It's bad strategy.
Then it's easy enough to check.
Mr. Cuomo, you're using your time, just so you know. You're going to have 30 seconds.
Yeah. On bail reform, we all talk about how terrible Rikers Island is, and it is. It's a disgrace that it is still being operated by this city.
Your time is up, Mr. Cuomo. I'm sorry.
Per person, and
time is up. I'm sorry. I am. Mr. Myrie, you voted for bail reform as well.
He is sorry. He did such a bad job.
You were the mayor.
He didn't answer the question. He spent all his time on like some random attack on an insignificant opponent, an attack no one's heard of. And then, like, they still give him extra time to answer. He doesn't answer, and then the moderator apologizes to him. Sorry, we couldn't give you twice the time as the rest of the candidates to babble and give a non-answer. It's so bad. I mean, she literally is sorry because she's the one who's like super biased towards him.
And other low-level crimes that are taking a toll on our city.
Anyone that breaks the law needs to be held accountable, and we made changes to our criminal justice laws because things needed to change. And here's how I know. I was robbed with my mom in an elevator in the building that I grew up in when I was very young. Her worldview is informed by that experience. We have to ensure that every New Yorker feels safe in every neighborhood, wherever they are. And that is what I'm going to do as mayor. I'm going to return our police headcount to what it was in 2018. And I'm going to ensure that all New Yorkers feel safe wherever they are.
Time. Thank you, Rosarina.
Yeah, Ms. Ramos, the same questions to you. You voted for bail reform. How would you stop shoplifters and other low-level crime to take a toll in the city?
Well, we have a little more than 1,000 recidivists in the city of New York, and I've been hard at work in the Senate already, making sure that we're looking at treatment courts in cases of kleptomania. But clearly, there are organized rings that need to be taken down by the NYPD. So I'm here to say that there's accountability to be had, but we also have to make sure that there is a balance with the job opportunities that should open up if we address all of the crises that we are facing.
But let's remember that you voted for the bail reform.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mamdani, you're opposed to rollbacks to bail reform, and you do not want to hire more.
Like she almost gave, or Ramos almost gave an answer there, and it seemed like she gave an actual answer in terms of, well, this is a way we can actually reduce, like she said the stupid part at first, which was we need to look into punishing these people legally, blah, 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 blah. And then she said the actual smart part which was, but you need to strike a balance. Like this isn't correct, but it's better. She at least mentions you need to also consider like economic opportunities, employment opportunities for these people. You need to like at least like pair increased police and legal penalties with like increased economic opportunities for these people, kind of thing. And the moderators respond by, you were supposed to talk about bail reform. They're like openly hostile to somebody giving like the only little hint of a meaning, because she's like a fake progressive, right? She has to like at least pretend she has some kind of real solution, and the moderators don't even like that. They're like, no, that was a bad answer.
Cops above the current authorized levels. How would you stop shoplifters and these repeat offenders? What's your approach?
I want to sustain the headcount that we have in the police department, and I want to listen to police officers who are leaving in droves from the department because they're being asked to do the work of mental health professionals and social workers. Right now, police officers pick up hundreds of phone calls a day that are mental health crises, hundreds of thousands a year. That's not the work that they signed up to do. And when it comes to shoplifting and retail theft, when the key here is to listen to workers themselves. They have spoken time and time again about the need for increased staffing in our Walgreens and our Duane Reades. And when it comes to organized crime,
Thank you very much.
we have to ensure the police actually hold them accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr. Blake, do you see a need for change to the bail reform, and how would you end the retail theft as mayor?
Absolutely. So I proudly supported it when I was in the assembly because
this is so stupid.
And we talked about raise the age and bail reform.
We just spent half this debate talking about crime. There's not a crime. There's an epidemic of unaffordability. There's an epidemic of inequality. There's an epidemic of fucking COVID. There's not an epidemic of shoplifting at Walgreens. Such a even on its it's like, how does that hurt? Like,
BD trial, we had to do that, but we need to make it different and stronger now. And to your question,
it's like they're purposely trying to make the debate more boring so people tune out, because they're like, what are they even talking about? Like, what is this? I don't care about Walgreens. Who cares about Walgreens? Shut up.
Question. That means we have to hold repeat offenders more accountable, be much more attentive to that degree. But the broader dynamic, if we help New Yorkers make
the medium New York voter is sitting there like, well, on one hand, I can't afford an apartment, but on the other hand, Cuomo says he's gonna lock up those shoplifters. I guess I'll go with him.
And keep more money in their pocket in the first place, then we wouldn't have people speaking about shoplifting. That's why we need to have local median income. That's why we have to have guaranteed income. That's why we have to help people on the front end, so we're not talking about them being arrested on the back end.
Thank you so much, Mr. Blake. Sally.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. We're going to go to you with the same question. Do you see a need for?
I'm like vaguely in favor of that dude. Like, I think that dude is like the Biden Obama dude is like one of the more honest people. Like he's not like trying to seem more progressive than he is, I guess, which like makes him a lot better than the average Democratic candidate for sure.
For any further changes to the state's bail laws, and how would you tackle retail theft as mayor?
Well, look, I've seen retail theft in my own neighborhood, walking into a Dwayne Reed with
Oh
kids
my God.
and just seeing the shelves empty, and then having to push a button, wait 10 minutes for
Oh my
a young
God.
staffer whose job is not to be my personal shopper. This is wrong, and that's why we need to put cops on the beat, working with the small businesses to root out the people who are constantly coming back to do this.
It always starts with an anecdote.
The people who are doing
I saw a crime once when I was a boy. That's why we need a police state.
The housing and the services that they need. See, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time, when it
Mr.
comes to
Stringer.
criminal justice.
I just want, since you used your time, just a yes or no question. Do you see a need for further changes to the state's bail laws? Just yes or no?
Look, I think right now it's been changed a couple of times.
Okay,
When
not a
Cuomo,
yes or no.
let me just say, when Cuomo signed it, he didn't do the work of a mayor or
No,
governor. The
okay,
mayor
it's
and the
not a
governor
yes
are
or no. It
supposed
was
to
just a
go
yes
through
or no question.
legislation
We're gonna move
and
on to
find
Ms.
the
Adams.
loopholes, and he didn't do that, and that's
Okay,
too bad.
we're moving on to Ms. Adams. Ms. Adams, same question to you. Do you see any need for changes to the state's bail laws, and how do you plan to tackle retail theft as mayor?
Well, the state just made some adjustments and some tweaks, so let's see how that goes. We need to take a look at the ringleaders at the higher levels of the folks that are carrying and actually doing the stealing. Low-level criminals are wasting away on Rikers Island. Some have committed suicide under this current administration. So what we need to do as far as public safety is concerned, I will fill the over 2,000 vacancies within the NYPD in my first 8 months as mayor. This is what we need to look at. Others are looking at bringing in thousands and thousands of police officers. We have vacancies to fill. This will work. This is what our NYPD needs, better management.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lander, do you see a need for changes to bail reform, and what would you do as mayor about this retail theft?
I've got a detailed.
Think about what's happening in LA right now. Think about what the police are doing, what ICE is doing, what the National Guard is doing, what the Trump administration is doing. Is management the issue there? Would you look at that situation and say, wow, I wish these Marines assaulting US citizens were better managed? Like, I was gonna say that last lady is very politically correct. Like, she doesn't say anything particularly progressive or bold or interesting, but she also doesn't like give red flags of like, I'm actually a crazy conservative person. But then she says that shit, and you're just kind of like, if you think the problem with the police is that they need better management, then you're cooked. You're like, you're not operating with the same faculties as like as people who we need in power.
Plan to combat retail theft, so the toothpaste is not always behind lock and key. You can look it up on my website. To develop it,
I guess what I'm saying is like, to me, that's almost equivalent of saying just there's no problems with the police, basically. Like, that's what that was. And so she's very status quo, I guess, which like, I don't think that's the politically correct thing to do. But I don't know. I guess she was like giving a non-answer because it's hard to answer about the police. Even Zohran is careful what he says about the police here, obviously, which is insane. But I mean, if half the city's budget goes to them, then they're going to be a topic.
Lessons from NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who I want to keep as commissioner because crime's coming down and accountability is going up. It involves giving a panic button, essentially, to retail stores so they don't have to call 911. They can report quickly. Investigations can be thorough. And I've actually taken the idea from the conservative Manhattan Institute that drug treatment courts need to be central in our response.
You just named two of my bills, the Retail Worker Safety Act with panic buttons and my mental health court expansion.
Ranked choice voting.
Quick response? Okay.
Ms. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Sally, you had a quick question here.
Yeah, well, I guess we also for Mr. Tilson.
Yes. Mr. Tilson, I'm going to let you respond. But
no, don't let him talk anymore.
Yeah, I guess because
holy fuck.
Mr. Lander brought her up. Just a quick.
No, they let Tilson talk way too much. Like, they need to not let the hedge fund manager talk anymore. Like, he's already talked way. He doesn't add anything to the conversation. He's just gonna be like, meh, I saw a trans person and that's why Donald Trump is in charge. Meh, kill Zohran. Like, that's all he's gonna offer to the conversation.
Show of hands, who else would keep Jessica Tisch as police commissioner? Okay, thank you.
I haven't decided yet.
Okay. Correct. All right. Mr. Tilson, you said you would cut crime by 50%. Do you want changes to bail reform? What can you do to tackle this low-level crime?
Yeah, well, I do very much believe we need to make substantial changes to bail reform and discovery reform, both of which went too far. Like what I said earlier, we basically decriminalized all low-level crime. Shocker, it went way up. So we need to have more police officers enforcing the law, and we need to change the legislation such that prosecutors can actually punish repeat offenders.
I don't care.
Talked to a cop.
Slime him. We need a 90s game show to dump the slime on this guy. I don't want to hear this guy anymore.
Right here in Midtown North last week, who told me they're down from 300 cops to 120, and they have to fill out so much paperwork when they make an arrest that the criminal is back out onto the street before they're finished with the paper.
All right, Mr. Tilson.
Thank you, David. Now we're going to talk about e-bikes, bicycles.
So there's no conception of reducing theft and reducing crime in that guy's mind except having more police officers and making the punishments for crime more severe. Those are the only two things he's like. Even to a person who's like apolitical, and you think about like what are all the different things you could do to try to like reduce crime in like a urban setting or whatever, even like an apolitical person who knows nothing is probably going to suggest like, I don't know, maybe you have like nicer communities with more things to do and more job opportunities and, you know, a better social fabric. Like people would like say things. It's insane to me that you can stand on the stage as a serious candidate for mayor and your only ideas for reducing crime, which by the way, I don't think crime is a big issue, but like not in the top 100 issues of what's actually hurting, you know, especially, sorry, there are some crimes that are hurting everyday Americans in New York, but they're the crimes of like Wall Street. They're the crimes of like the Trump administration. They're the crimes of Cuomo when he was the governor. Like that's the shit that's actually hurting people. You know, when they're too scared to announce, when they hide COVID for like the first 2 months because they're scared that doing lockdowns or doing anything about it is going to like tank the stock market. That's literally what Schumer and Cuomo and all those goons were thinking, and Trump. They all thought the same thing. Let's hide this thing for as long as possible to not affect the market. That's a crime. That's the kind of crime that's actually affecting New Yorkers. It's not the crime of stealing toothpaste from Walgreens that's affecting New Yorkers. And if you want to like address, even if you're trying to address that kind of crime, there are 1,000 things you could name besides let's just increase police presence and legal penalty to reduce crime. And the fact that he can stand up there and be taken as I don't think he really expects to be taken seriously, except for people who are just like completely uninformed and are just taking whatever he says at face value or something, and like already agree with him, I guess. Like he's just there to cause shit. He's not a serious candidate. It's crazy.
In the city have
reached. Having said that, I just want to know, most of those candidates said the same thing. Their strategy for reducing crime is more policing. Almost none of them, like I said, Ramos, because she's a fake progressive, at least mentioned we need to give them job opportunities. And the moderators got mad at her, basically. And then, of course, Zohran actually has a program of, like, we're going to do, like, this community wellness department or whatever with mental health. Like, he has some kind of plan. You know, for addressing the people in most urgent needs, and that's fair. But yeah, it's crazy to me how there's not like I would expect the majority of Democratic candidates to at least be like aware enough to say like, yes, we need better job opportunities, we need better educational opportunities, like these kind of things that anyone who studies crime knows are proven to reduce crime rates. Like none of them are willing to say any of that. Almost all of them just said we need more police, and that's crazy to me. This is why I say Democrats are crypto fascists. Like they're not even making the surface level arguments that you'd want to hear from a liberal from like the 19th century. You know what I'm saying? Like a liberal 150 years ago who was probably very conservative relative to our times on a lot of issues. Even even like Abraham Lincoln, even like a fucking 1860s or 70s liberal would be able to say like, yeah, we need to do more than just increase policing to reduce crime. It just like, that's purely the conservative fascistic solution, and almost all of these candidates just went with it, and that's it. It's trying to look at these things objectively is like mind-numbing sometimes, because you're like, how is it this dumb? How is it this like, how is this even taken seriously at this point?
Record heights in the recent years, with injuries also surging, many involving, of course, e-bikes. Just the past hour, Mayor Adams announced a plan to impose a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit on e-bikes. Do you believe this is the right way to improve safety? And what else would you do, Ms. Adams? You have 30 seconds to answer.
Yeah, a lot of those.
Sorry, I just want to say one more thing. Because they're spending half this debate on crime apparently and shit. But if these Democrats can't be trusted to follow the most basic 150-year-old science on criminology and crime, if they can't just like accept the very basic like that a person in first year of college would learn about crime and the sociological factors, if they can't even get on board with that kind of science, that level of basic science, then I don't really care what they say about climate change, right? I don't care what they say about vaccines and everything like that, because I don't like, they're clearly not that interested in science. Like whatever they say about those things, you can't really trust them. I don't trust any of these people. I don't have any reason to believe that any of these people who said that the solution to reduce crime was more police, I have no reason to believe any of them genuinely believes in climate change. Because why would they care about science in one aspect but not another? I think if they say they care about climate change, they're probably just saying that because they think it's politically advantageous to them. But just, I don't know.
The e-bike riders are people that deliver food to our homes, and they have families as well. I do believe that there needs to be a closer look, which we are doing in the City Council as far as regulation is concerned, but we have to be careful.
But this regulation with 50 miles per hour, is this the right approach to regulate it?
Well, as the mayor normally does, he does not collaborate with the City Council, which had we done that collaboration together, we might have come up with a different solution other than 50 miles, and I believe is a penalty, which we could have come together and realize something much more reasonable for e-bike riders.
Just to clarify.
15
I understand.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Lander.
I think the pedal assist city bikes go 17 miles per hour, so that seems pretty good to me. But we've got to go upstream here to the folks that are causing this. Uber Eats and Seamless and DoorDash need to be held accountable for the trips that are taken.
Nice.
They're making money. They've got the data to keep folks
That's
safe.
like a real answer.
And, you can't operate a car dealership in this city that sells cars without license plates to people without driver's licenses. So we've got to hold the sellers of mopeds accountable. Those are motor vehicles, and they need to be treated that way. If you're going to sell them, they've got to have licenses, they've got to have license plates, they have to operate safely.
Ms. Ramos.
Well, we have to end the criminalization of our delivery workers and bicycle riders. A lot of enforcement has now changed from civil summonses to criminal tickets, and that is leaving breadcrumbs for ICE and leaving many of our community members vulnerable. That being said, it is high time that we post speed limits and adapt our street design for the use of bikes and e-bikes. The fact is that we have to get them off the sidewalks. We have to make sure that they are abiding by the.
I know this lady is like scummy and endorse Cuomo and all, but it's such a good point that by criminalizing like e-bike delivery people, you're just like inviting ICE into the city. And like this system is almost designed to like burden a certain demographic of people with those kind of crimes so that, you know, the government can have some excuses to crack down. Like, this isn't just an e-bike specific problem, obviously. It's a whole, you know, racial profiling type problem and class profiling type problem, if you want to really like generalize about it, right? And like but at least she's like acknowledging that, you know, it's very, we can't be criminalizing these stupid little things. That's just going to invite Trump. Like, it makes me realize that Tilson dipshit and the other conservative candidates were saying about more police presence, more crimes, more arrests, whatever. Like, yeah, that is going to make it a lot easier for ICE to move in. That is going to make it a lot. They'll say, oh, there's a sudden spike in crime in New York because there's more police and they're doing more arrests and stuff. They'll say, oh, there's a sudden spike in crime in New York and we gotta send ICE in to get those illegals. Like, you can already see the blueprint. It's already there. Like, if anything, you make crimes illegal is you have to like decriminalize your petty crimes so that ICE people don't use it as an excuse to invade your city at this point. That would be like a reasonable way of confronting Trump. So you can kind of see how, like, you know, what Trump definitely wants is Cuomo, or if he could, Tilson, or any of these conservative idiots who want to just like increase policing and not, you know, address the underlying economic issues, like the really fundamental issues, you know. And because that's just gonna, with Cuomo, not only can he be blackmailed, but his whole policy program is just gonna make it more difficult for poor people and criminalize more people. And that's exactly what Trump wants. So it's crazy that she's like the first, they've been talking about crime for how long? And she's the first one to say, like, hey, to even like allude to the fact that, hey, if we just like criminalize people for like jaywalking on their e-bikes or whatever, like, we're asking for ICE to come to our city. Like, and the rest of it, like, somebody like Tilson is too stupid to even think about that, I'm sure. But like, I don't know, it's surprising more of them haven't like said anything about it. I guess they're probably scared to, because you don't want to seem pro-crime or anything like that. But
rules, and this is why
for how much they were talking about being scared of Trump, you'd think they'd talk about it.
That our writers speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Myrie.
There's no question that things feel different on our streets and that these categories of vehicles are not built for our current structure and on our streetscape. So we have to regulate. We have to hold the companies that are making money more accountable on this. But we also have to ensure that we are doing this in collaboration, doing this in a smart way, and ensuring that the enforcement
in collaboration with who
going to be going through. What we have seen is uneven enforcement in this space, and that's why there are older adults in this city that are afraid to cross the street because of how things feel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cuomo.
What?
Yes, I think this is another example of just dysfunctional city management. We passed a state law allowing e-bikes. It was supposed to be regulated by the city. You've had all sorts of accidents, all sorts of warnings. The city has done nothing. The speed has to come down. City bikes voluntarily came down to 17 miles an hour. You have these e-bikes, some of them doing 25, 30 miles an hour. You have to bring down the speeds, but you also have to have them registered by the apps. They're the ones who are making the money. Let them license, let them register, let them pay the tickets.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tilson.
This issue is actually quite personal to me because I ride my bike in the city every day. And in fact, I'll bet I'm the only mayoral candidate in history who ever rode his bike to the mayoral debate, as I did this.
Yo, I could so see this shithead riding a bike and looking like a fucking scrawny ghoul with his bike helmet on. I can see that. So he is everything I hate.
And those e-bikes are...
Look how trendy and hip and progressive I am on my bike as I bike ride to the debate where I say we need a police state.
Have made things a lot more dangerous, not just for pedestrians. So I've been calling to speed limit them since the beginning of my campaign. I totally agree with that. And I will tell you, just in the past couple of months, since police have started issuing citations, the e-bikes are behaving themselves a lot more. I see a lot fewer blowing through red lights, blowing up on the sidewalk.
Thank you, Mr. Tilson. Let's remind you guys that these are the people taking most of them your food to your offices and your homes. Mr. Mamdani.
You know, I find it ridiculous to hear Andrew Cuomo talk about how we need to regulate the apps when this is the very mayoral candidate who has a super PAC that received $1 million from DoorDash. How are you going to regulate DoorDash when they are giving you $1 million to influence your street safety regulations and your labor regulations. This model, this economic model, is one that doesn't just incentivize e-bike riders to break street safety laws. It often requires
Thank you,
them
Mr.
to do so to make the
Mr. Cuomo,
deliveries
do you want to respond to that?
Yes. I work for the people of the state of New York, the people of the city of New York. I don't care who gave me what. I do what is right, and that's how I...
Clearly, he doesn't care. We know you don't care who gives you money, Cuomo. We know. You don't have to tell us. We fucking know. We figured it out. We put the pieces together. You don't care who gives you money. We get it. Like... I don't blame Zohran for laughing. That's such a stupid answer on the face of it. Trust me, though. I'm for New York. Yeah, sure.
But you don't feel compromised?
That's how I've always run my
But don't you feel
career.
compromised?
Don't you feel
The
compromised?
should be held responsible. They are the ones who should have to license the bike, register the bike. They should be responsible for the fees. They're the ones who are making the money.
Thank you, Mr.
And
I
in
wouldn't
terms
trust
of
the guy
who
who's
represents
gonna
who,
get $1
Thank you very much. We have to go to Mr. Blake.
Mr. Blake.
Just want to make sure we internalize that Andrew Cuomo just said, I don't care who gave me what.
Yeah.
That's not a man who's actually going to break the corruption in City Hall. You need a new vision right here. To your question around e-bikes, one of the reasons why we cannot have an increase.
You know that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's how I feel about this guy now. Because I don't think he's that progressive, but he's just shitting on Cuomo so much. I love it.
People getting
he's an ally.
That it will absolutely lead to the harassment of more communities of color and immigrants in particular. Now,
True.
we definitely have to focus on what's happening around speed limits, but also how to reimagine what our city can be, because we cannot continue to have a 2025 city with a 1905 infrastructure.
Mr. Blake.
So we've laid out the vision at BlakeForNYC.com on how to address e-bikes as well as a new city.
Mr. Stringer.
Let me start by asking, just answering the question. Yes, I think 15 miles an hour is reasonable, and I think the mayor is right about this. But in the time that I have, I do want to follow up about DoorDash, because that $1 million contribution crossed the Rubicon. And the contributions of donors who are giving between $250,000 and $1 million are fundamentally buying the mayoralty. And that is something that we spent 20 years never trying to get to again since City for Sale.
Mr. Stringer, thank you very
You are
much.
writing a new book about how to take the mayoralty 1, 2, 3. And I find it
Mr. Stringer,
offensive.
thank you. Brief response, Mr. Cuomo.
Yeah, I live with the kids.
See, this, I told you, this guy isn't like progressive, but he's like a bitter old guy who's like, you fucking scummy New York Democrats have fucked everything. Like, he doesn't like them. He doesn't like Cuomo. I can tell. He's not, neither of these dudes are progressive. I think this dude, Blake, is doing it more for like his career ambitions, because like the next election or the one after that, Blake could be seen as like the, you know, the centrist, like, you know, the mainstream candidate, whereas this dude is just kind of like, you conservative Democrats in New York are real shitbags, and I'm done with it, and we need like some standards in this place, kind of thing. And I like the energy. I like the old grumpy man energy.
Campaign finance rules. They're talking about an independent expenditure committee. And let's remember who represents who here. I am the person on this stage who represents the working men and women of New York City.
No, you.
The labor unions have endorsed me over 650.
I am the gaslighting king.
Fine by the campaign finance board. I got this.
Being challenged by the campaign finance board as we speak.
Dude, these two are like, these two are so ready to shit on him. I love it because they're, like I said, Zohran comes off so clean. He's not being too opposite. Like, he's not going out of his way. Every time Zohran is asked and he can turn it into an attack on Cuomo, he does. But like he's kind of been able to sit back throughout this debate and let the others throw shit at Cuomo, and he just seems like he's just chilling. He can just talk about his own things.
We have to move on. I think
he's not like, Zoran's not like jumping in after Cuomo answers to bash him, right? These two are doing that, and it's good. Other people do that sometimes, maybe too. But like the fact that Zohran doesn't even have to jump in because there's at least other candidates willing to criticize Cuomo, and Zohran can, you know, just use his turns to speak wisely. But, you know, it doesn't, I think like optics wise in a debate, it doesn't always come across the best if you're like the one interrupting and trying. It's been studied in general, it's seen as unfavorable if you're like constantly interrupting and jumping in and stuff. Zohran hasn't done that once, like unless I think when he's been specifically mentioned, he's like raised his hand and the moderators have had to let him talk, kind of thing. But like he's not jumping in at all, he's just sitting there and letting Cuomo, like, you know, hang his own rope.
The issue's been spoken to and addressed. We have another question here for you. We'd like 30 seconds on this. You've all spent years in politics. What's your biggest regret? We'll begin with you, Mr. Blake.
Well, right now it's dealing with the Campaign Finance Board, who is illegally not having me on the second stage, where they have now admitted in writing 4 times that they made incorrect determinations on my matching funds. And if you go to our website, you're going to see we challenge that.
Is that a regret of something? Your regret in this? Or?
Well, my regret is that I've been trying to have patience with the Campaign Finance Board.
Okay, Mr. Blake, thank you. Mr. Mamdani, biggest regret in your years in politics.
You know, as a Democrat, one of my regrets is having trusted the leaders within our own party, leaders like Andrew Cuomo.
Ooh.
Because what we've seen is that kind of leadership.
Oh, that's such a good fucking answer. The Democratic leadership polls at like 20% among like fucking Democrat. Like nobody likes them. Oh, that's such a good answer.
Has delivered us to this point where we are under attack by an affordability crisis on the inside and a Trump administration on the outside. And Democrats are tired of being told by leaders from the past that we should continue to simply wait our turn. We should continue to simply trust when we know that's the very leadership that got us to this point. We need to turn the page for new leadership to take us out.
Mr. Tilson?
Yeah, my biggest regret is that I didn't see Joe Biden's decline and call for him to resign earlier. It wasn't until after the debate that I became one of the loudest voices publicly, nationally, calling on him to step aside. But unfortunately, by then it was too late.
That is such an egomaniacal. My biggest regret is that I didn't step in earlier and decry Biden. If only I had complained about Biden sooner, we never would have ran into this mess. I could have saved everything, but I didn't. This guy's insane. Dude, nobody cares what you think. Nobody ever cared what you think. That wasn't a thing. That's not like something that happened. What? Like, it's so self-absorbed. I should have called Biden out sooner. I regret it because everyone was harmed so badly by it. Like, you are a fucking idiot, dude.
We handed Donald Trump the presidency.
Mr. Cuomo, your regrets in all the years you've spent in politics?
That the Democratic Party got to a point that we allowed Mr. Trump to be elected, that we've gotten to a point where rhetoric has no connection with reality, where a person who has served in government for several years, only passed 3 bills, believes they have the experience and credentials to...
My biggest regret is that we allow Zohran on the stage. Very good, Cuomo. I'm sure you do regret that because he's about to beat your ass.
The greatest city on the earth. And the Democratic Party seems okay with that.
Mr. Cuomo, this
No
question was about your personal regret in your years in politics.
I said I regret the state of the Democratic Party is that we elected Trump.
Not the 15th.
No regrets when it comes to cutting Medicaid or health care. No regrets when it comes to cutting child care. No regrets when it comes to slow walking PPE and vaccinations in the season of COVID to Black and brown communities. Really, no regrets. No regrets.
We have to protect Medicare.
He really is Trumpian, though. Like, if you're Cuomo and you've been governor for how many years and you can't even come up, like, he's obviously not going to name his biggest mistakes, but he can't even say like, oh, one time at a fundraiser I didn't have enough women on stage, or, you know, like, he doesn't even have like anything he can offer. Just, nope, I did everything right. What I regret is that all of you guys stink and I did everything right. Oh, he's such a fucking scumbag. How do people take that serious? Like, how do people not see that he's the same kind of megamaniacal asshole that Trump is? Like, he won't admit any fault, not even the slightest. His only regret is that everyone else sucks and he's awesome.
Retirees.
Okay, we want everyone to be able to respond.
Embarrassing.
Okay, we want to respond to this, Mr. Cuomo. You only have a few seconds.
Yeah.
Like I'll be clear. I think that Zohran's answer actually makes sense in the context of his political career, because I was asking earlier, like, where has this guy been? Why wasn't he like a prominent alternative candidate to begin with? And I think to an extent, it's probably true that at least like some number of years ago, like let's say 10 years ago, he probably did have more faith in the Democratic Party to continue driving things in a positive direction and stuff. Like not saying that the Democrats were driving the country in a positive direction, because they're just make things go in a bad direction a bit slower, but to say that like the Democrats as a party were making slow but steady improvement is probably what Zohran thought. And he probably thought like, oh, if Hillary Clinton runs in 2016 on a bunch of progressive stuff, then by 2025, surely the whole party will be in favor of Medicare for all. I mean, 80-90% of the Democratic base is in favor of Medicare for all. Surely if Hillary can kind of dance around it in 2016, we'll be there by 2025. We're not there. So I actually understand that from Zohran's point of view as a Democrat who's like clearly a lot more progressive than the rest. Like I actually think that's a pretty legitimate answer, especially in terms of like he could have been a little bit more specific about like what he would have done differently, I guess, but especially in terms of like being a relatively young and very progressive candidate. Like he hasn't made that many mistakes, right? Cuomo has been a governor, has been around forever. Like he's made mistakes. He knows he's made mistakes. He was the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. There's nothing he would have done differently over that whole time. Really? It's baffling how people could vote for that, how people think, yeah, that's honest, he has no regrets, he never did anything wrong. The only thing he did wrong was allow everyone else to suck so much.
No, I understand, but
it's not. It is just not accurate. Medicaid went up under me.
No wonder they took this debate down.
Okay. I pushed President Trump to give us everything he had.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. Right.
I was there every day.
You expressed it.
Leading COVID.
Okay.
No regrets.
I have to ask him
all right.
Mr. Cuomo, I'm sorry. I'm sure that people at home must be wondering about your answer to this question, because we speak to voters throughout the city, and quite a few of them will say, I'm not sure exactly what happened with those sexual harassment cases. We know that you say you never sexually harassed anybody.
But I hate this because this is the moderator who is most in favor of Cuomo. This lady is the most, I don't know, the political lady I assume is basically a fascist. Like, I don't trust her at all. But, yeah, no, I think they did take it down because Cuomo looks really bad. And like this is the most Cuomo moderator. Of course they give her this question so she can try to softball as much as possible. And they save this for the last 3 minutes of the debate. Like they do a boring half an hour crimes, and then right at the end, we're gonna make a little question about all those women you assaulted. Disgusting. Like, they're trying to bury the whole thing, right? Disgusting.
You say you're running to restore efficient government and efficient leadership. But in the past, your leadership came with what more than one investigation concluded was a toxic work environment, especially for women. And some of those cases
you sniffed
are
them.
Ongoing.
You sniffed women, you
weirdo. Since we're talking about regrets, you have apologized to some of those women back when you were still governor. What do you say?
Yeah. Yeah, they just talked about regrets. He doesn't regret the way he conducted himself around women, clearly. He regrets that all those women suck so much.
Voters now, looking ahead to your potential mayoralty, are you doing anything differently? And why should they believe that that same situation won't happen again?
Yeah, Melissa, let's just make sure we have the facts. A report was done 4 years ago making certain allegations. I said at the time that it was political and it was false. 5 district attorneys, Democratic, Republican, short, tall, looked at it all across the state, found absolutely.
Why did he list short, tall? What was the point of that? Fat, slim, big, small, funny, boring, nice hair, not nice hair, smells nice, I don't like smelling them. They all said I'm great.
Nothing one case has been resolved. I was dropped from that
Dude,
case.
I think he has like
I said
early
at the time
Alzheimer's or
that
dementia or
if
something.
I offended anyone. It was unintentional, but I apologize, and I say that today.
There was also a justice.
Just some unintentional sniffing in the office. Just sniffing the female coworker's hair unintentionally. I was unintentionally allured by your sweet-smelling hair, and now we have an unintentional situation which I have apologized for. Thus, I have no regrets.
Department investigation, but we'll move on because we're out of time.
We detoured there because the issue raised, but we also want
I do not regret smelling those women. They smelled delicious, says Andrew Cuomo.
everyone to respond. Mr. Murray, biggest regret in politics?
I regret not having secured more funding for after school earlier in my career, but I want to turn to Andrew because during...
These are short answers, Mr. Murray, on your regrets.
I have 30
Regrets.
seconds, correct?
Yes.
When I was in the ICU...
They won't even let him criticize. This is amazing. They're actually interrupting during his 30 seconds to not let him criticize Cuomo. Crazy. Crazy.
During COVID, writing legislation to protect my community, you were the most powerful person in this state, and you were in the governor's mansion taking a $5 million deal. Do you regret taking the $5 million, and will you give it back?
Yeah. First of all, that's not true.
What part?
I stood up every day and fought for this state, for COVID, against President Trump, for PPE, for masks. I was in emergency rooms.
I was in a hospital.
All right, gentlemen, I need
May I finish?
For wearing
Gentlemen, I
garbage
understand.
bags for PPE.
Yes.
Do you regret taking
We're
$5
gonna,
million?
we're going to
I
pick
did.
up. It's
We
the
were
way,
doing everything
Mr. Cuomo,
we could every day to get
Mr.
as
Cuomo,
much
people
as
aren't going to hear you if you.
We're
We are
gonna
going
come
to
back.
finish
We have
this.
to take a break.
We have a break right now that we have to take. We will pick up with the issue. I assure you. We're just about at the 1 hour break. We're going to continue this online. Channel 4 goes to regular programming, but wherever you stream, News 4 New York, continue watching us. We will be right back with more of this discussion.
What? I mean, they said there was going to be more of it. I don't know. I can make these segments go a little faster if I pause for less time, but also I think it was still pretty good, and I just kind of said what I wanted to say about how silly these debate people were. I think the craziest thing to me is just like in 2025, even the Democratic candidates can't talk about like we need to have better education and better job opportunities for people to like stay out of crime. They won't even talk about it. All they'll say is more police. And like I said, it's anti-science. Like as much as these Democrats position themselves as being better than Republicans because they believe in climate change and they believe in, I don't know, they just don't believe in a bunch of crazy conspiracies about vaccines and all this shit. But they seem to all just uncritically accept a conspiracy theory that increasing policing is the way to reduce crime. Like, it's just not backed by science, anyone who studies these things. And, you know, like if they wanted to be better educated, like, I don't blame the average person for not knowing these things, right? But these are candidates. Right? If somebody just like if a random voter accepts we need more police on face value because the candidate said so on TV, fine. Whatever. I don't begrudge that person. But these candidates know better. Like they somebody in the last like several years could have said to them like, hey, why don't you like learn about actual like they know, but they just won't say it, right? And it's kind of pathetic. I won't say it's scary, but it's just kind of pathetic because I think they're very weak, so they're not scary, but it's definitely sad that even the Democrats can't have like progressive positions a lot of the time. They just need to like toe the conservative line and like be very absolute about it. this is why, you know, a couple months ago I did a video where I rambled about them being controlled opposition, and when we look at them, there's not much else we can conclude, and it's stuff like this that confirms that for me, because you can really see, like, I don't know, there as ICE is raiding LA and trying to deport immigrants, these Democratic candidates are standing on that stage saying we need to increase policing so that we can criminalize more of these, like, poor working class people who are disproportionately, you know, racialized and immigrant people. We need to, like, really make sure we criminalize them a lot. They spent like half the debate talking about that, and then a quarter of the debate was talking about how scary Trump is, and it's like, really, you don't put two and two together. You can't, like, put those things, you can't see how if you criminalize a bunch of immigrants, that's just going to lead to more problem in your city. That's just going to lead to more problems. But Trump will say, oh, in NYC immigrant crime is spiked up 400%, and he'll be right, because these Democrats will be, like, hiring more NYPD to arrest more immigrants for jaywalking, and like, it's crazy. So anyway, they're not a very good opposition. In fact, it's pretty obvious Cuomo and that Tilson guy are, like, explicitly on Trump's side in this. They have the same backers, and yeah, they you know, they have a long history of working with Republicans, a much longer history than Trump. Like, Cuomo was a more reliable partner, historically speaking, for the Republicans than Trump is, right? People like Mitch McConnell and all those, like, nasty Ted Cruz, all those nasty Republican types, they definitely like Cuomo a lot. And like a lot more than they like someone like Trump. Trump is a threat to them. Cuomo's not. Cuomo's like a partner in crime. Anyway.
City Council Speaker Adrian Adams.
Okay, we already saw these.
Senator Jessica
all these losers.
Rosarina Breton. We are streaming live on NBC New York and Telemundo 47 digital platforms, Politico.com, Telexitos, and we're also live on YouTube. So, candidates, with all of us on stage, so many, we wanted to give a chance for voters to hear as much as they can, but we also have to try and get all the production things
and it's
done.
a ranked choice ballot.
Pick up with Mr. Cuomo, given a chance to respond to what Mr. Myrie said, and then
NBC removed it. Like, they removed it from their own channel.
Ms. Adams to talk about,
and they, like, copyrighted anyone else who tried to put it on YouTube.
Yeah, briefly,
it's very weird.
We led the way under COVID.
And just in case somebody wasn't aware of this race, this is a corporate evil ghoul, and Zohran is an actual person, and he's the most progressive person to ever be anywhere near to this much power. So, you know, this might be historic, this election. The only thing I can think of that compares is Bernie being a senator for Vermont, but I'm honestly not sure if the mayor of NYC or the senator from Vermont has more power. Anyway, an actual progressive getting into power, how about it?
Day I got on that TV, I informed New Yorkers of exactly what was going on and all the facts, and I was fighting President Trump for the COVID.
Oh, you were fighting Trump.
There was no doubt that in the beginning there was no PPE and people were using garbage bags, but we fought vehemently for it. When the first phase had passed, New York, we actually got through the first phase. It was then going to other states, and that's when we were trying.
He's so slow. Like, when I think he's senile.
Continue on, and you may have a chance.
I think he's getting some dementia or something. Like, on it, I'm not trying to be like ableist or ageist, but he's so, like, long-winded and slow whenever he talks. He has to, like, preface everything and be like, this was during when Trump was attacking me and we were blah, blah. He doesn't say anything, though.
Ramos, biggest regret in your years of politics.
We had the vaccines. You use a vendetta against the former mayor, not to make it happen.
So I regret not running for mayor in 2021. I had been in the Senate for 2 years. I'd already passed over a dozen bills. I thought I needed more experience, but turns out you just need to make good videos.
Mr. Lander.
Okay, Ramos here is a fake progressive, and all the moderators are on Cuomo's side, so they're, like, snickering at her, like, lame joke against Zohran. But She has basically ended her career as a progressive since this debate happened. She endorsed Cuomo. So we don't like her. We don't rank her. If you're in New York, do not rank Ramos. She's a fraud, basically.
I was the champion for the Gowanus rezoning, which is producing 8,000 homes in my district. But I'll be honest, I wish I had pushed for even more housing in my district when I was a city council member, because we need it. But let's be clear, sexually harassed 13 women, marked up that state health department.
Oh, and now, sorry, just to give some context, they're talking about their biggest regret, and this was after Cuomo said his regret was that the party all sucked except for him, basically. He doesn't have any regrets in all his years of governance. Never made a mistake. He did everything right, as they say.
Report to undercount nursing home deaths has now forced taxpayers to spend $60 million on his legal bills. Has learned absolutely nothing, taken no responsibility.
Okay, Mr. Land, thank you.
David,
he does not deserve your trust.
You can't let him sit
briefly.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Cope harder.
The report was done. 5 DAs, nothing has come of it. In terms of the paying legal fees, yes, the state pays legal fees. The state was sued. Kathy,
I don't know why my
was sued, and I was
soundboard
sued.
doesn't work.
And the controller knows that because he was sued 15 times, and the city paid the bill. He was sued by parents of the disabled. He was sued by homeless providers who said he was. I know he didn't do anything about the safety conditions. He was sued by people who said he mismanaged the pension
thank you, Mr. Cuomo. Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. Mr. Lander, you have 15 seconds just to respond.
It's just every one of those things is false. The thing about my wife was sourced from Twitter. Honestly, I have no idea where he got this one. He's lied to you so many times on this stage tonight. Takes no responsibility.
All right, we're going to move on. Miss Adams, if you could speak.
That's true. He doesn't take much responsibility. He literally said he did nothing wrong.
My biggest regret is believing that Eric Adams would be a good mayor for all New Yorkers. I have had to restore budget cuts from this mayor. I've had to save pre-K. I've had to save 3K. I've had to save our libraries. I've had to save our cultural institutions because the mayor of the city of New York thought that it was his job to cut all of those and to slice.
Honestly, it seems like Cuomo just tries to waste his time so he doesn't have to answer questions.
Our seniors through their library services and their food services.
I mean, let's be clear. Cuomo isn't going to any of the optional debates or forums or town halls or anything like that. He's only willing to participate in these few official debates, and yeah, it seems like he is giving non-answers as much as possible.
As well, I have had to be the champion to make sure that all of those services were restored for the people of.
And when he does give an answer, it's like,
I did everything right.
City.
Mr. Stringer.
I've thought about this question through my career, and I would say that the biggest regret from a policy perspective was when my mom died of COVID before her time, and she was a great trailblazer, the first woman elected city council in Washington Heights back in the day. She was a real fighter, but she lost the fight with COVID. I really wish, before I left the controller's office, that like with so many other issues, I really was able to really build a COVID recovery plan for the city.
Thank you, Mr.
And I
Stringer.
just ran out of time.
We'll continue with Telemundo anchor Rosarina Berton.
Thank you, David. A very important issue for my viewers in Telemundo 47. We're going to talk about immigration, okay? So, as we know, President Trump wants to abolish sanctuary cities like New York, and his administration has applied pressure to force cooperation on deportation. So, to understand a little bit more this issue, we're going to give you a couple of scenarios, hypothetical scenarios, and you're going to have a minute to answer this one. Mr. Cuomo, we are going to begin with you. Let's say ICE notifies your city-run hospitals that they must stop offering medical care to undocumented patients, or the federal government is going to withhold millions of dollars in funding. What would you do?
I've gone through this with Mr. Trump before with ICE.
But what would you do now?
You cannot give in to Mr. Trump and his demands. You cannot.
But let's say he's cutting funding.
You can't. It will never end. If you give in to him, He is a bully. I know him well. If you give in to him today,
So what
you
will
will
you
be
do?
giving him your lunch money for the rest of your life.
So what's the solution?
You have to fight him, and the way you fight him is not by suing him. Yes, of course you sue him, but he gets sued 10 times before he gets out of bed in the morning, right?
Kind of like you.
That doesn't
And the
bother
lawsuits
him,
are winning.
right?
Kind of like you.
We need a national coalition, which we can put together, of like-minded states and cities that will oppose these actions. And then we're going to have to eventually beat him politically in the Congress, but you cannot give in to his demands.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. Mr. Chilson?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump throws 50 tweets a day up there, and most of the time you just ignore him. If he actually does act illegally,
Why did they let this
blackmail
guy
us,
back on the stage?
You have to.
He's a
sue
Republican.
to restore that funding. I am appalled by what Trump is doing to terrorize immigrant communities and demonize immigrants in general, and that's an area I will fight him tooth and nail.
Mr. Mamdani?
Our city is under attack by an authoritarian Trump administration. And it is under attack that is now being echoed by Trump's allies right here in New York City. And I say that as someone who would be the first immigrant mayor of the city in generations, someone who just yesterday had a sitting elected official call for me to be deported. This is not an intellectual exercise for the people of New York City. We deserve to have a mayor who is not funded by the same billionaires that put Donald Trump in D.C. We deserve to have a mayor who will actually fight back. And the way that we fight back is ensure that our local institutions continue to provide the services to each and every New Yorker.
But the question is, how can you protect those people? Going to hospitals, how can you protect them?
Here's the thing. The Donald Trump administration will use the fact that they fund 7% of our city budget as leverage over us to try and give up whichever category.
Notice how they only interrupt Zohran to try to remind him what the question is, but Cuomo's allowed to give as many non-answers as he wants, even when it's about his sexual assault allegations, and he'll say nothing. I shouldn't even call them allegations. They're more than allegations. That they happened.
Of New Yorkers,
but they are allegations as well, I guess.
Ultimately, what we need to do is tell those same institutions we will provide them that funding, and we'll get that funding by taxing the 1% and the wealthiest corporations right here in New York State.
Thank you so much. Mr. Blake, I'm going to remind you the question is, ICE notifies the hospitals that they're not going to offer care to immigrants. How can you solve this situation?
As a son of Jamaican immigrants, where I was born with a heart murmur in North Central Bronx.
Dude, he's answered half the questions with "as a son of Jamaican immigrants." That's he starts that with half his. I don't like him. I just
hospital, and my mom that's watching right now, and my wife who's Jamaican Honduran. This is important.
Oh my God! Shut up! Nobody cares that you're Jamaican, bro.
Question. We create the protections by designating hospitals, schools, community centers, places of worship as safe havens where ICE is not permitted to enter unless there's a signed judicial warrant. Moreover, we have to expand the conversation. We've made very clear we will remain a sanctuary.
He's going to answer the next question well, my Jamaican friend said to me when we were in little Jamaica town. Bro, shut up.
City to make sure that we are protected, full stop. But it also is important about how do we have the rhetoric, that we will not tolerate rhetoric against our immigrant communities. The same way we will not tolerate anti-Semitic behavior. We will not tolerate.
He's gonna answer a question without saying that he's Jamaican, and then at the end he's gonna be like, by the way, I'm Jamaican.
Nonprofits that are helping our immigrants as well, which is why I said you must grant as well as reimburse nonprofits earlier that are helping our immigrants, in particular.
He's also a Biden-Obama guy who worked for them or something.
We first have to make it clear that the buck.
He is the most Jamaican man who's ever been in the White House. That's what that's all I know about him.
Immediately allow us to build back the health services that the federal government could take from us financially. This is why we need a mayor who knows the buck, because that's the job of mayor, understanding how we actually get through the Trump era. But it doesn't stop there. Look, my experience has always been about fighting in Trump 1, and we won a lot of those battles. We won those battles during COVID. We never backed down, but we were strategic. And that's why we need to work with our Washington partners. There are Democrats in Washington ready for the fight with a mayor who brings a confidence and a proven ability to deal with the economics of this crisis. But this is not a time for training wheels. This is not a time for somebody who has never dealt with the finances of the city to be mayor of New York.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stringer. Now, Ms. Adams, we're going to go to you next. We're going to change a little bit the situation. Let's say that you learn that ICE is planning to stop immigrants outside your hospitals for possible roundups. Would you warn them? And how would you handle this situation? You have a minute.
You know, it's work that I'm already doing as Speaker of the City Council. So I've already stepped up in leadership to do this. I've had a target on me because I refuse to erode our sanctuary city laws, and I have refused to do this.
Also, notice how they, like, the last section ended with them asking Cuomo about sexual assault allegations. He gave, like, a rambling non-answer. They cut him off halfway through. They went to break, and then the TV stream ended, and now we're on the online half, and they never continued the question. Like, it's so bad, actually. They just want him to be totally unaccountable.
My mission is, and will be when I am mayor, is to protect the immigrants of the city of New York. New York is a city made up of immigrants. So it is our responsibility to make sure that all New Yorkers, our old New Yorkers and our newer New Yorkers, feel safe in this city. As mayor, I will not kowtow to Donald Trump.
But would you warn them that they're...
I will absolutely use my bully pulpit as the mayor to warn, as I am doing as City Council Speaker pretty much on a daily basis. The work that I am currently doing as Speaker, I will expand as the mayor of the city of New York. Donald Trump will know that New York will remain a sanctuary city regardless of his threats and his chaos. We will stand because we are a city and a nation, and we will be that model once again for other cities in this country to take a look at and to work towards becoming like New York.
Thank you. Mr. Lander.
Thank you, Rosarina. I mean, as you well know, 40% of the 8 million New Yorkers are foreign-born. 50% live in mixed-status households, including 1 million children. This is the future of New York City that we're talking about, which is why I was proud to be a co-sponsor of those sanctuary city laws. 3 specific things I would do here. 1, it's not just the mayor. Every New York City employee needs to understand the sanctuary city laws. So I've got a detailed plan to make sure our school social workers and receptionists, our shelter security guards know the sanctuary city laws. So we'll have a network to get this information out and absolutely warn people before they walk into ICE. I've proposed creating an independent health authority to segment off city money from Medicaid money. And I want to expand NYC Care. So it's not just in health and hospitals, but in our federally qualified health centers as well. That'll make sure our immigrants are protected.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramos.
Rosarina, Trump mintió. Trump anda detrás de todos los inmigrantes. Pensamos que solamente iban a ser los supuestos criminales y hemos visto que eso no es verdad. We have to keep ICE out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our houses of worship, out of any public institution, and really limit cooperation of ICE with the NYPD only when it comes to the 90-plus charges under the current sanctuary city law. Those are very serious charges. I want to make sure that in a town with so many lawyers, our immigrants have lawyers, and our immigrants do what they came here to do, work. It is our it'll be my responsibility as mayor of the city of New York to create entry points into the economy so that they can stay busy, provide for themselves and for their families, and honor the fabric of this city and of this country, which cannot function, whose future won't be brighter without our immigrants.
And that sounds like an amazing, that sounds like a great plan, but would you be using taxpayers' money for that?
Yes, this is actually making sure we are expanding Action NYC and our cooperation with our community-based organizations, clinics with our 7 law schools to make sure that we are on the ground.
Her voice is so nasally.
Teaching people their rights.
Mr. Murray.
I'm done with
this
her.
isn't just a hypothetical for me. I grew up with pretty severe asthma, and both of my parents would take me to a city hospital, Kings County Hospital, when I had an asthma attack. They weren't documented then, but they knew that the city had their back.
Yeah,
So
most people with shoes as nerdy as his have asthma
that we had
attacks.
their back right now. Sanctuary city laws used to not be political. well-known progressive Rudy Giuliani stood up for our sanctuary city laws because he understood what the
I shouldn't be too hard on him.
City.
I'm like 50-50. Does he genuinely believe anything he's saying, or is he just like completely full of shit? I'm like 50-50 on this
snatching
guy.
people out of our schools.
I
They're
know.
snatching people out of our courthouses.
I'll leave his
We
shoes alone.
cannot stand
He
for
does
that in
seem
this
like
moment.
someone who would have big asthma attacks growing up. Like, oh, I want to hang out with that guy. Oh, you can't. He's having asthma attacks. Oh.
Ensure that we are not carrying out the federal government's
He's not
immigration
allowed to hang out after
We
school.
have
He's
to
having
stand up
asthma
in this moment.
attacks.
That's what I'll be as the next.
Thank you, Mr. Myrie. Sally?
Thank you. Let's move on to another very important topic, public schools.
Having said that, I'm
The city
still
spends
ranking
more
him
of its
second.
tax dollars on public schools than anything else. But after shelling out some
This is the thing.
$40,000 a year
Even if I don't trust him, I still have to take him at face value and like rank him like second or something like that. Even though I think he might just like know what the right things to say are, kind of like Elizabeth Warren did, you still have to like, unless you're like sure that they're lying, you still have to like kind of, I don't know, encourage their progressive behavior, I guess I would say.
per student. Only about half of New York City kids can read or do math at grade level. Only half. Bottom line here.
And this
what
is
do
a
you see as the
two-person
top
race anyway, so it doesn't
for
really
that dismal
matter. It's
return
all,
on
it's
this
either
$41
Zohran or
billion
Cuomo. No,
a year
it's like
investment?
50-50.
And how would you turn it around?
Nobody else has a
You'll all
chance.
have 30 seconds to answer. Mr. Blake, we'll begin with you.
We have to address literacy and have a better pedagogy on the front end so that our teachers and our educators and families are able to make sure that we...
And by the way, this is the strategy when you have like a progressive candidate that you don't want to win the primary, you flood the primary. It's the same thing that happened in 2020 when a million different Democrats ran, and then at the same time they all dropped out and endorsed Biden, and that's how Biden was able to beat Bernie in the primary. It's the same thing here. They're scared of Zohran, so one thing they'll do with these debates is make sure there's as many candidates as possible, because then Zohran gets less speaking time, the race becomes less about Zohran versus Cuomo, like all these other people are just like distracting, which is why I was glad some of them were at least attacking Cuomo, so it's not, so they, like this guy for example, I don't think he's here just to distract. I think he sees himself as like a viable candidate like 4 or 8 years from now kind of thing, once Cuomo's sunk and Eric Adams is sunk. But a lot of them, like Ramos, like I think Ramos is only running to try to like pull immigrant Latino communities away from Zohran and to Cuomo. Like I think that's her specific purpose for running. But yeah, you see this a lot where they try to like flood the field with like a bunch of progressives that don't really have a chance, and they're just there to distract from the progressive who actually has a chance. And they're not even real progressives, they're just people pretending to be progressives so that people will actually be willing to vote for, like, I don't know, an Elizabeth Warren over a Bernie Sanders or something like that. So that's kind of why I think the nerdy shoes guy is possibly like a plant, because he's saying all the right things. But if he really believed all those things, why wouldn't he just endorse Zohran? Like, there seems to be, he hasn't really said what his issue with Zohran is. So, like, all I'm left to believe is that if you, like, you probably don't really believe the things you're saying, or you would just endorse Zohran. You either believe none of what you're saying, or you're, like, more interested in your own career or something. I'm not really sure. So I just don't know what to make of that kind of thing.
Address this critical issue. It's the reason why I led the My Brother's Keeper program.
He is nerdy
But it also
shoes
means that
guy.
we have to
Look at
be
his shoes
clear,
next time.
Be against any anti-blackness that is
I
happening.
should learn
in our
his name. What was his
And
last
something that
name?
many people may not
Myrie
realize.
or something?
In 2008, Andrew Cuomo said that
This is
no
Blake.
candidate
I call
should
him
shuck
Blake now.
or
I learned his
jive
name.
in an election. Clearly, Barack Obama was there. So when we talk about education, it's not just about making sure that we understand.
It takes me a while to learn names of people I don't care about, okay?
We're at time, Mr. Blake, and before we move to Mr. Mamdani, Mr. Cuomo, would you like to respond to that?
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Look at his shoes.
So,
Come on, look at look at his
Is it inaccurate that
sneakers.
you said in
The
2008?
dress pants are too big for him, and he's got these white sneakers on. It's really funny.
Mamdani
Incorrect.
said he is a liar.
Is the quote incorrect?
That's like how Newman used to
never-
dress on
I never
Seinfeld.
insulted.
Okay, not hearing an answer to
This is
whether
very
the quote
clear.
is
In
incorrect.
2008,
I never.
in 2008,
We do have to move on because many people do want to hear about public education.
I love the
So we're
Blake
gonna move on
versus
to Mr.
Cuomo
Mamdani.
stuff, though. That's some of my faves.
You can have 45 seconds to answer. To
The,
respond to him
the
and
cool
please
guys are on the
address
right
about
side, as
Yes,
far as I'm
I'll
concerned.
do so shortly after. We have Mr. Cuomo.
Even though that old
who
guy's
said
not
these
that
words of
cool,
shuck
but
and
he's
jive
okay.
when
He's
Barack
okay.
Obama was running to be the president of our country. I was proud in 2008 that the first doors I ever knocked on was for Barack Obama. While we had a candidate here.
Why do you call him an evil and
While
a
we
liar?
have a candidate here
Why
who
would
is
you
so
call him
who
a
is
liar?
a candidate here who is so allergic to any accountability or acknowledgement of a mistake that he can't even admit that he said these kinds of words. Now, as it pertains to public education, all of the challenges that we are facing in our city when it comes to our schools, they are also downstream from the fact that 500,000 of our
It's not
children
even
are
the
going to
shoes
see
themselves,
free
it's how
every
his
single day.
it's how his pants fit
100,000 of
him.
them, for the ninth
It's
consecutive
just
year,
funny.
are now homeless. We need to ensure we have a city where our children can not only have food to eat, a place to call their
We're-
home, and we also
we're
have to
at time,
have
Mr.
the
Mamdani.
full implementation
We're
of
at time.
class size reduction.
Mr. Tilson, we're going to move to you, and I just want to remind you, we do want to know a solution
Oh,
to the
God.
problem in the public school system. That is the heart of this question.
Sure.
Mr. Tilson.
The failure
Don't
of our
listen
public
to this
schools
guy.
is exhibit A of how city government spends way too much and delivers far too little. Our kids are reading below Mississippi's despite spending $40,000 a kid. They're the poorest state in the nation, spending 12. It's really, if you're a business person, I know, and I am for 40 years, it's bad management. There are few, if any, rewards for success and few, if
Oh
any,
my
consequences
God.
for failure. I served on the board of KIPP charter schools for more than 20 years.
Oh, I knew he was going to do charter schools. I knew charter schools are just a way to funnel tax money to private corporations. It's just like, what if we did what we do in healthcare, where you have these health insurance companies, but we're going to have like private schools that get between you and your kid's education. That's the idea, honestly. This guy is a Republican. Like, there's nothing more to him. He's just a Republican.
15% of our public schools, the charter schools, are held accountable. Not surprisingly, they are the best charter schools, public schools overall in the city, delivering for kids.
We have to move on.
They're not. That's not true at all. Like, first of all, charter schools, only rich people can afford to go to those, and most of those rich families have like private tutors for their kids as well and stuff. Like, it's not. You can't just say that. You can't say, oh, well, the school where the parents pay $50,000 and the state pays $50,000 a year for a kid, that actually has the best results. And it's like, yeah, you're spending over twice the money, and that's not something that everyone, like, if you want to invest in public schools so everyone can go through that, sure. But what he's basically saying is like, we need more schools for rich people because those schools, they have good outcomes. It's like, no fucking duh, they have good outcomes. Look how much money's going into them in comparison.
Mr. Cuomo, and I just want to remind you again, we've established that there's a problem. We're looking for solutions. Mr. Cuomo?
Gotcha. Interesting, Mamdani never denied saying Obama was evil. And
Oh my God.
I believe neither of you did.
That has nothing to do with schools, you fucking
You
stooge.
didn't deny that you said shuck and jive.
Neither of you denied the quotes that were raised.
He did not
but we
deny
are here
that
to
he
talk
told
at this
President
moment about
Obama.
public
Okay,
schools.
Mr. Cuomo,
Viewers, no one denied any
Mr.
quotes.
Cuomo,
that were raised.
solutions to
Mr.
public
Cuomo,
education.
can you
Vote
address-
my name. I need just 5 minutes.
I understand
Hold on.
that education is
Again,
very
please
important.
don't force us to.
Education is a very important issue to New York
I'm proud
City.
that I raised.
Okay, we're going to move on. Mr. Myrie, do you have...
No. Let's give Mr.
Time
Cuomo.
was-
Proud that I raised education to the highest level of any state in the United States. I understand the point about we need to reform the education system. I would start with the DOE. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars on consultants. We don't know what we get. I want a real analysis of the curriculum New York City solves and New York City reads.
Wait, so he's saying his solution to education is to cut the budget. He's saying let's stop letting the Department of Education pay for consultants. That's how I'm going to make education better. Dude, that's not a solution. That's just cutting. That's just making things worse. Like,
we need more paraprofessionals in those schools. 1 out of 8 children are homeless.
Okay.
It's too much for a teacher to do.
Understood.
Pay the paraprofessionals.
We're at time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cuomo.
More assistance.
More
Thank you,
support
Mr.
staff.
Myrie.
Okay.
I wouldn't be
That's
standing
kind
on
of an
this stage
answer.
if not for our city's public schools. I went to PS 161, the Crown School, and made my way to Cornell Law School with Brooklyn Tech and Fordham in between, only because there were teachers that got up every single day and put their best foot forward so that I can be on a path to success. But we also have to think about what is happening after school. We had learning loss over COVID-19, and I want to provide universal after school to help make up for that learning loss. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have an after school program.
Bro, you're not
that
talking
taught me
about the
karate,
schools,
even though I was
though.
terrible and I was the only boy on
Thank
the
you,
step
Mr.
team and
Myrie.
had the moves to prove it.
Thank
I want to give that to every single kid.
We're
in
at
the city.
time now. We're gonna
None
go
of
to
them
Mrs.
are
Rom-
answering
Ms.
the
Ramos.
question. This
Well,
is
now
so
I have to shout
sad.
out PS70, IS10, and the Academy of American Studies in Astoria. I wouldn't be here without them, and my children wouldn't be where they are in middle school in Queens if it wasn't for PS69 in Jackson Heights. Look, it's true that our children suffered some lapses in developmental and social skills throughout the pandemic. I've seen it. So I want to make sure that we are delivering on teacher centers and so that our teachers have more supports, giving NYC
Thank you,
Reads
Ms.
more
Ramos.
time to really seek
Thank you,
in
Ms.
and really providing our District 75 schools with all of the funding they deserve.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramos. Mr. Lander, again, we are looking for solution-oriented answers here.
Both our kids also pre-K to 12 in New York City public schools. Shout out PS 107. 30 seconds is hard. I've got a detailed plan. I'm the only candidate in the race with a detailed plan on my website for education. How I'll measure what matters, what metrics I'm looking at, how I'll recruit, retain, and support teachers, including a teacher's center in every school, and how I'll deal with the growth we've seen in mental health crises, in homelessness, and in chronic absenteeism by making every school a community school so it can support all our students.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
You know, prior to becoming an elected official, I was the education chair for my local community board. Education has always been a priority for me. It always will be. We raised 4 children in the public school system. So again, I am that everyday New Yorker that knows what this feels like. So we know that the DOE has the highest budget of all city agencies. What I would do would be to redeploy resources. I have seen as council speaker how difficult it is to maneuver through the DOE agency and the barriers of bureaucracy. But as mayor, I will have full view in order to help all of our children get through the bureaucracy and get our children
Thank you, Ms.
taught
Adams.
the right way.
Mr. Stringer.
My sons, Max and Miles, are going through public middle school as we speak. And the challenge for them as COVID kids is very real. And there's a lot of kids out there that need help, and they need it now. They need mental health services. They need extra tutoring. And we're not providing that with this $40 billion budget. I know that because I audited the Department of Education more than any controller in history, found missing computers, missing iPads at the height of COVID. But here's what we have to do. Childcare.
What?
Baseline pre-K, 3K. We need an after-school program that focuses on
I don't think missing
tutoring and giving
iPads
kids
and computers
that
are
don't
going
have
to like
parental
fix
resources
the
financially the help they need.
What does
It
this
doesn't
have to
matter
do
how
with
you start
fixing
the
the
race.
schools?
It matters how you finish the
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. We're at time. David?
Okay,
I found
thank you,
some missing
Sally.
iPads
We
once.
call this next section of the debate, what's in a
Great
name?
job,
we have
Grandpa.
3 quick questions looking for fast answers. We'd like you to answer each of them with a name. We'll go down the line, starting with Mr. Stringer. Right now, who's the most effective Democrat in the country?
They always have to be more than fair to Cuomo. Wait, what was the
Not
question?
Eric Adams.
I want to hear that question.
Democrat in the country.
David?
Okay, thank you, Sal.
At the height of COVID. But here's what we have to do. Childcare. Baseline pre-K, 3K. We need an after-school program
That
focuses
awkward
on
silence
tutoring
is
and giving
precious.
kids that don't have parental resources financially the help they need. It doesn't matter how you
We're-
start the race. It
Thank you,
matters
Ms.
how you finish the
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. We're at time. David?
Okay, thank you, Sally.
Good analogy.
We call this next section of the debate, what's in a name? We have 3 quick questions looking for fast answers. We'd like you to answer each of them with a
Fast
name.
answers.
We'll go down the line, starting with Mr. Stringer. Right now, who's the most effective Democrat in the country?
Most effective Democrat. Okay.
It's not Eric Adams.
He can't think of anything.
I would say the most effective Democrat right now is Hakeem Jeffries.
Okay. Mr. Blake?
Wow.
I would say myself because I actually defeated Donald Trump when I was vice chair of the DNC.
Mr. Mamdani?
Mayor Wu of Boston.
Mr. Tilson?
My old friend Cory Booker, after his 25-hour Herculean
Thank you, Mr. Tilson. Mr. Cuomo.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Mr. Myrie.
Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Ms. Rummel.
Maryland Governor Moore.
Mr. Lander.
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu.
Ms. Adams.
I would have to say the next speaker would be Hakeem Jeffries.
In the primary, voters will be ranking you 1 through 5, number 1 being their top choice for mayor. So we break up the order and start with Mr. Cuomo. Assuming you rank yourself number 1, who on this stage would you rank number 2?
Wait, hold on.
Say the next speaker.
Ms. Rummel.
Maryland Governor Moore.
Mr. Cuomo.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Mr. Myrie.
Hakeem Jeffries sucks. Just to be clear, Hakeem Jeffries is the one going to SpaceX and Palantir, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel's companies and begging them for money. Like at this late stage, he's still going to Trump's billionaire close backers and begging them for money for the Democrats. That's what Hakeem Jeffries is doing. He sucks. That's a terrible
Donald Trump when I
answer.
was vice chair of the DNC.
Mr. Mamdani.
Mayor Wu of Boston.
Mr. Tilson.
Ooh, who's the mayor of Boston? I don't know.
After his 25-hour Herculean.
Thank you, Mr. Tilson. Mr. Cuomo.
Hakeem Jeffries.
I'm gonna look who I don't even know who
Leader
Mayor
Andrea
Wu is.
Stewart-Cousins.
Ms. Rummel.
Maryland Governor Moore.
Mr. Lander.
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu.
Ms. Adams.
Oh, so he is a Bill de Blasio guy. He's like, I'm all about the progressive mayoralship.
The next speaker would be Hakeem Jeffries.
In the primary, voters will
Hakeem Jeffries is a non-answer. You're just deferring to like the leader of the House.
be ranking you 1 through 5, number 1 being their top choice for mayor. So we break up the order and start with Mr. Cuomo. Assuming you rank yourself number 1, who on this stage would you rank number 2?
I'd leave it to the voters.
So you would not put a name in, or you're not sure?
No, I'd leave it to the voters.
Okay. Mr. Tilson.
I haven't decided on my number 2, but I'm an ABZ. No disrespect, Zohran, but I think his policies are dangerous.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani.
I'm more of an ABC guy, anybody but Cuomo. I'll be telling my voters, however, who to rank number 2 before Election Day.
Okay, no names yet. Mr. Blake.
I'm going to take the Andrew Cuomo approach and not answer your question.
Mr. Stringer.
Well, you're not supposed to make news at these debates, right? No, just joking. My second choice really will be based on who I think would be the second best mayor on.
No fucking duh, answer it.
Right?
Wait, who's before him?
I'm more of an ABC guy, anybody but Cuomo. I'll be telling my voters, however, who to rank number 2 before Election Day.
Okay. But I'm an ABZ. No disrespect.
Number 1. Who on this stage would you rank number 2?
Oh my
I'd
God.
leave it to the voters.
So you would not put a name in, or you're not sure?
No, I'd leave it to the voters.
Okay. Mr. Tilson.
What a loser.
I haven't decided on my number 2, but I'm an ABZ. No disrespect, Zohran, but I think his policies are dangerous.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani.
Because you're a
More of
Republican.
an ABC guy, anybody but Cuomo. I'll be telling my voters, however, who to rank number 2 before Election Day.
Okay, no names yet. Mr. Blake.
I'm going to take the Andrew Cuomo approach and not answer your question.
None of them are answering any of the questions. This is so sad.
Mr. Stringer.
Well, you're not supposed to make news at these debates, right? No, just joking. My second choice.
Okay, Zoran, these three are like the kids making jokes in the class. I feel like they vibe with
really
each
will
other.
be based on who I think would be the second best mayor on the stage.
Ms. Adams.
I also would rank myself number 1, of course, but we will not be breaking news as far as who my number 2 will be tonight.
All right, Mr. Lander.
Andrew Cuomo has shown you many times tonight why he should not be anywhere on your ballot.
Ms. Ramos.
Well, I think this debate is really good food for thought and will give us all a better idea. I'm hoping to have a better idea by the end of tonight.
Mr. Myrie.
Stay tuned.
All right. The last one, we'll start with Mr. Stringer again going around. 4 years ago, in the race for mayor, who did you rank first on your ballot for the Democratic primary?
That was tough. I conferred with my wife, and we said Stringer number 1.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blake?
Maya Wiley, I co-chaired our campaign, and our city would be much better right now if Maya Wiley was mayor.
Mr. Mamdani?
Maya Wiley.
Mr.
She was the good one last time.
Mr. Cuomo?
I would have done Eric Adams.
Did he live in he was mayor?
Mr. Mamdani?
Maya Wiley.
Mr. Tilson?
Catherine Garcia.
Mr. Cuomo?
I would have done Eric Adams.
Oh my God, he actually said Eric Adams. That's crazy. What a fucking loser. That's crazy.
Did he live in New York City?
He did not. He said he would have done. You said you
I think it was about 30 years since he lived here, right?
Mr. Meyer?
I ranked Maya first.
Ms. Ramos.
I voted for Maya Wiley.
Mr. Lander.
Maya Wiley 1, Catherine Garcia 2.
Ms. Adams.
My biggest regret was voting for Eric Adams, number 1, with Maya a very close second. Kathy Garcia was.
All right, thank you.
Well, I'm not
candidates.
ranking any of you.
All right, thank you, candidates. Stallion.
Okay, we're going to move on to housing. You've all made housing a top priority in your campaigns.
At least
And
they're
as you all
cracking
know, the
jokes.
city
They're
is
not
in a
answering
housing
questions,
crisis
but they are cracking
vacancy
some
rate
jokes.
just
It's kind of,
1.4%.
it's like all the candidates see the moderators as so like biased towards Cuomo and doing such a bad job that like none of the candidates are even willing to like put a genuine effort into answering questions at this point.
We'd like you to explain your proposed solutions to this housing crisis and how you would pay for it. You'll have 1 minute to answer this question. Mr. Tilson, we'll begin with you.
Sure. Well, as I discussed about an hour ago, the key, I think, is to unleash the private sector to build a lot more supply, which wouldn't just stabilize rents. We have the highest rents in the country. We need to bring them down. I think they can come down by 20%. Austin just demonstrated how to do this in only 3 years. How do we do that? We need to ease zoning restrictions, fight NIMBYism, properly staff the city departments to streamline that process, and overall, just speed up the process. It's taking 4 years to build, start to finish, and it should take only 2.
4 years.
I will say my plan is basically the opposite of Zohran's. He wants the city to build all new affordable housing, which I think the city has no we've seen the city is no good at building and operating housing. He would also saddle us, he proposes, with $70 billion of debt. This would end up looking like California's high-speed rail project. Nothing accomplished.
We're at time.
billions
Thank
spent.
you, Mr. Tilson. Mr. Cuomo, how would you try to resolve the housing crisis and how would you pay for it?
Yeah, it's a desperate problem. I built housing for the homeless in my 20s. Excuse me. I served as HUD secretary and built housing literally all across the nation, hundreds of thousands of units. We need to blow up HPD. It's an obstacle. The city council is a bottleneck. We have to use faith-based
I'd like to respond to that.
We need to use vacant city land. I've shown that I know how to build. Look at LaGuardia Airport. Look at the Casco Bridge. Look at the 2nd Avenue subway. I know how to get things done. And that's what this election is all about. Not plans, plans, plans. Who can get something done?
Not plans,
Ms.
plans,
Adams, yes, if you'd
plans.
like to very briefly respond to that since he invoked the city council.
Yes, I would. And the former governor's response really does show how disconnected he is to the work of the city. Unlike myself, who is currently still in city governance, the only person on this stage actually that has experience of city governance and doing the work. The city council, under my leadership right now, has already walked 120,000 units of housing for the people of the city of New York. So the city council is not bottlenecking anything. Maybe perhaps 10, 20 years ago, when you were a governor, that was happening. But under my leadership, we have a brand new culture in the city council where we are actually working for the people to make sure that housing is built and housing is built now.
Very, very briefly.
Yeah, the mayor has an interesting proposal that I think we're going to see in the Charter Commission that talks about the role of the city council and expediting the approval mechanism.
Okay, Mr. Myrie, your top solution to the housing crisis. You have 1 minute to discuss it.
I grew up in a rent-stabilized apartment. It is a place that my mom, my parents were able to find, the only affordable place they were able to find to raise me to be on this stage right now. But that opportunity has slipped away for too many New Yorkers. My wife and I, we want to put down roots in the same neighborhood that we grew up in. When you walk down Bedford Avenue, everything costs $1 million. Who has $1 million? Maybe some of the people on this stage do, but I don't have it, and I know you watching at home don't have it either. So I've been clear about what my plan is to drive down the cost of housing. 1 million homes over the next 10 years. We can actually do this with some leadership. The leaders of the past, like Cuomo, who had the opportunity to do this, only gave us a city that is more expensive than it was 10 years ago. I want to also extend pre-K and 3K from 2:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. so that we can draw families here and keep them here. And I want universal free after school for every kid in this city, because it has to be a city where you can raise a family and where we can move everyone to a path to success.
And very, very briefly, what is your price tag on those 1 million new homes?
So this should have been like the first question. This should have been like half the first part of the debate. The fact they asked about crime for the whole televised part, and then now that it's only online, they're actually asking about housing. Like it's like a crime. It's like they're not even trying.
My plan
it's
does
crazy.
not require us to raise taxes and reduce the private market in order to build housing. Incentivize.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ramos.
Property tax reform is at the crux of our affordable housing crisis in this city. I want to make sure that we are helping homeowners and landlords bring down their costs. Water rates, the cost of water has skyrocketed in the past 3 years under the current administration. And then I want to freeze the rent. As a rent stabilized tenant, I know how tough it is to be able to keep up with rent. The rent is too damn high and the wages are too damn low in this city. So I want to make sure that we are unwarehousing the 5,000 apartments that NYCHA is hanging on to. I want to make sure they're repaired so that we can chip into that 200,000 New Yorker waiting list. I also want to bring back the co-op city model so that we can attract the city services that are needed. We need more nurses. We need more teachers. We need more doctors. We need more police officers and firefighters. So
we need less people with nasally voices answering questions.
Homeownership opportunities so that every New Yorker can own a piece of our city.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Mr. Lander.
Oh, she's wasted air.
About affordable housing. I spent 3 decades delivering it. Spent 15 years before I ever got into elected office with my sleeves rolled.
Again, just to be clear, that Ramos lady drops out and endorses Cuomo like right after this debate, and it's so sad.
Rolled up renovating abandoned buildings and vacant lots into affordable homes. In the city council, I was the champion for the Gowanus redevelopment, 8,000 new units, 3,000 genuinely affordable. Saved the 35,000 units of Signature Bank rent stabilized housing when they were put at risk by Signature's failure. So I know how to do this. That's the leadership I'll bring to City Hall. I'll declare a housing emergency on day one. I put out a detailed plan for how we can build 500,000 homes over the next 10 years, and I've laid out where, including 50,000 units in great new neighborhoods on 4 of the city's 12 city-owned golf courses. Might be losing the golf vote tonight, but we need the pathway to homeownership and genuine rental housing. I've also laid out detailed plans for how to fix HPD and NYCHA. I've got the management experience. I can deliver those homes.
Thank you. For viewers at home, that's the Housing Department and the New York City Housing Authority.
I don't think this guy would be the worst mayor. I think he would be inadequate. Like, I don't think he'd do enough. And I also just think that, like, his like mild progressivism doesn't really appeal to anyone at this point. But no.
That you spoke about this before. We're going to give you 30 seconds to continue your answer.
Yes, already doing the work. Don't need a manual or a transcript in order to do it. I'm already doing it currently as we speak. So I've already delivered thousands of affordable units to people of the city of New York. We can take a look at Innovation Queens, the largest privately developed structure that is coming up right now, unheard of. We can look at Bronx Metro North rezoning. We can also look at what we just passed 2 weeks ago, the Atlantic Avenue rezoning. And yes, we can take a look at the City for
the
All,
next debate will be better because a few of them won't be on the stage.
Brand new
Thank you, Ms. Adams. We have to move on to Mr. Stringer.
Doing the work.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. Can you please talk about your housing?
Apparently, that Blake guy, the Obama-Biden guy who's been attacking Cuomo, apparently this second debate, the DNC or whatever Democrat Party people, they did some sketchy stuff to like disqualify him from the debate. So we won't see that Blake guy at the next debate. So we won't be able to attack Cuomo, which is, I'm sure that's why they disqualified him, because they didn't want him attacking Cuomo more.
Plan and how you would pay for it.
First of all, this housing crisis is way too real, and we've confronted housing issues in the past. Mayor stepped up and didn't do the minimum, they did the maximum. LaGuardia built 2,200 public housing units. The Mitchell-Lama housing program, the greatest integrated housing program in a generation, was also built. Right now, all we do is have luxury developers propose projects that gives us unaffordable, affordable housing. I want to upend this. My plan, take 1,000 vacant lots, build the affordable housing that we need. You give the land to not-for-profits, to community-based organizations. We're in the game. This is not pie in the sky. I can't say to you tonight, given my 30 years of experience, that anyone has a plan to build 1 million homes or 500,000 homes in 10 years. Don't believe it. Believe what we can do in the next 2 years. That's the first step. Lastly, we also have to recognize who can best do this work. As controller, I financed affordable housing all over the city. As borough president, I didn't do 1 or 2 rezonings. That was my life's work for 8 years. And we transformed so many parcels of land into affordable housing.
We have to move on. Mr. Blake.
When we talk about a housing crisis, you have to actually go through the journey. My mama overcame homelessness. We sold dinners to pay rent in South Bronx. And so this is not about a report from me. This is about reality. So how do we fix the crisis? We need local median income because area median income is not working. We need to end credit scores being utilized for housing applications, and we need to increase the income limits on housing applications, especially to protect all of our New Yorkers. When you think about what's happening in Rochdale Village right now with an unfair tax.
What about
the protections that have to happen at Co-op City or Concourse Village, Tracy's House, just name a few. But then we got to go a step further. For public housing and those that are living in NYCHA, for those who have not helped you with heat and hot water, they need to go to jail because they're not being held accountable to actually fight for you. And so when we talk about the actual vision of a housing plan, if you go to blakefornyc.com, you will see the welcome home vision because we want to make sure you can afford the home you deserve.
Mr. Blake, we're at time.
he does seem very Biden-y or Obama-y in the sense that, like, he's offering some kind of vision for how he's going to improve things, but he's not, like, none of what he said. He didn't even talk about, like, building more houses. He's not addressing the underlying conditions with the housing market. He's just kind of tweaking the government programs to work a little bit better for people, which isn't like a bad thing, but it's like he won't address like the underlying conditions. And that's probably because like he wants Wall Street, he wants the real estate people to be willing to back him in the way that they, backed Obama and Biden, and I'm sure the other people he's worked for.
A very quick follow-up. Who are you implying should be going to jail?
The individuals that are working at NYCHA that were a part of a bribery scheme that has been unveiled and uncovered, where it's been very clear that they were taking in bribes and not actually fix what's happening in the residences.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mamdani, we'll go to you.
If you are one of the close to 2.5 million New Yorkers who live in rent-stabilized housing, I will freeze your rent. And I will do that because you have a median household income of $60,000 while your landlord profits have increased by 12%. This is an act that will bring nearly $7 billion back into your pocket and back into the pockets of our local economy. This is what we will do immediately, and we'll do so because the mayor has the power to. Even though there are those like Andrew Cuomo on this stage who will tell you it's unrealistic, we know the previous mayor actually did this 3 times.
And do you notice something, like just going back on how amazing Zohran is, like as a speaker, even though that Tilson guy, that creepy old dude, keeps attacking him every chance he gets, every time Zohran responds, it's to Cuomo. It's not to the creepy neoliberal guy. Like he's just ignoring that old dude because that old dude's only there to start shit with him. Like Zohran is laser focused on Cuomo.
And on top of this, we're going to build 200,000 truly affordable homes. Homes that are for the New Yorker who has a median household income of $70,000 for a family of 4. We'll do this while taking on the very bad landlords and the real estate developers who are funding Andrew Cuomo's campaign. $2.5 million last time I checked. And we're going to do that because ultimately every single person needs to follow the law, and that includes the landlords who are
Andrew Cuomo at the first half being like, I don't care who my money comes from. It's like, we know, Cuomo, we know.
Very brief response, Mr. Cuomo.
Mr. Mamdani is very good at videos, but not reality.
We've already heard that.
Good line.
The Daily News said that
good line, dude.
Finance his proposals, it violates the constitutional debt cap of the city of New York. It would double the state taxes, and there is no way the state is going to pass a tax statewide.
Okay.
What?
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo. We have to.
No, he's
Rent freeze isn't
able to respond. Just for 10 seconds.
No, so we've
Just
tried
for 10 seconds
okay,
here.
Brief response.
What the governor is speaking about is when we want
Wow, they almost wouldn't even let him respond. They almost wouldn't let Zohran respond to that. That's crazy. That's such blatant favoritism. Holy shit. I can't believe it. And what is Cuomo, like, debt concern trolling? Oh, and put us into debt. He's talking about rent freezes. That's his main thing. That doesn't put the city in debt.
fight for working class people, it's considered unrealistic. But when he wants to give Elon Musk a $1 billion tax break, it's totally feasible. What the Daily News found is that this would mean taking a $30 billion.
The only way I understand that, unless I'm missing something, the only way that makes sense is if what Cuomo is saying is if you freeze the rent, then the real estate value, like the value of an apartment building, will go down because the people owning it aren't profiting as much. And therefore, you're bringing property values down. Therefore, you're bringing tax revenues down. And that's going to bankrupt the city. But like, if this housing prices come down, then good. There's a housing crisis. People can't afford places to live. Like, that would be good if the housing prices started going down. Who gives a fuck if those real estate companies go out of business? We don't need them to have houses. We just need houses that are less expensive. Like, you can really tell who's bagging him financially.
Budget, increasing it such that we could actually create truly affordable housing.
All right, we have to move on. We have some breaking news we want to ask you about. The Trump administration is threatening the accreditation of Columbia University. In a statement, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said after Hamas's October 7, 2023 terror attack on Israel, Columbia University's leadership acted with deliberate indifference towards the harassment of Jewish students on its campus. This is not only immoral, but also unlawful. That is a statement from the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. 30 seconds. What's your reaction to this move? Mr. Cuomo, we'll begin with you.
I think you have two separate issues. Number one, I do believe there's been anti-Semitism in the city. I believe it's a growing problem. And I believe the rhetoric about Israel has actually inflamed the anti-Semitism. Put that aside, I think this is just another overreach of the Trump administration. Now he's going to take over the academic universities in this country.
Did Tilson talk? I didn't even hear him. I honestly was not paying attention. I don't care.
And he must be opposed at every turn.
Mr. Tilson, your reaction to this, threatening the accreditation of Columbia University?
Yeah, I'm totally appalled by two things. First, the failure of Columbia and other elite institutions to adequately act quickly after the October 7th attacks on mobs. Creating a very...
Yes, no, his stance is... He's very creepy. He's very like, I'm a technocratic, like, 70-year-old financier who likes to ride his bicycle. Like, it's very creepy. It's very eerie and uncanny. And of course, now he's saying that he's disgusted that universities didn't clamp down on protests sooner. Like, this guy's just a Republican.
A dangerous environment for Jewish students. My daughter is one of them in college right now. My wife and children are Jewish. This is personal to me. But I am, and these mobs, let's be clear, were incited by activists like the Democratic Socialists of America and their anti-Israel
Mr.
rhetoric.
Tilson,
I am even more appalled, however, by the Trump administration pretending to care about anti-Semitism and threatening the accreditation of universities.
Mr. Mamdani.
I think this is yet another example of a gross overreach of the Trump administration, one that they have shown they will continue to pursue with whichever university they decide to target. It's been Columbia, it's been Harvard. We need to have a mayor that will actually stand up to Donald Trump, not one that we have right now that will collaborate with them. And that is who I will be, as someone who is, in the words of Shirley Chisholm, unbought and unbossed, because the donors who are putting me in second place in this race are working class New Yorkers across this city.
Mr. Blake, 30 seconds, please.
As a reverend, let's start from the core that all hostages have to...
As a reverend, not as a Jamaican. We'll see if he's Jamaican in this answer.
Come back home on both sides. Let's also be very clear that we have to reject anti-Semitism.
Let's also be very clear that I'm a Jamaican immigrant.
Not killing people at the same time. The overreach is unacceptable in what Trump is doing. Linda McMahon is clearly more focused on wrestling rather than the facts. And it's one of the reasons why I'm running in this race. Because of my federal experience and working for real President Barack Obama.
Oh, I thought he was going to say because of my background as the child of Jamaica. I really thought he was going to say it. I really thought he was going to say it.
State House experience and local experience, we have to make sure that we're not allowing D.C. to have overreach. And when they take these steps, we will withhold sending New York City taxes to D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Stringer, your reaction.
There's no question that on so many of these college campuses, the anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish hate is very real. And we have to make sure that we hold universities accountable to make sure every student of all different backgrounds are safe.
Shut up.
But this Trump move goes against everything that's American. And if he really wants to help Jewish students and all students, because everybody faces discrimination at some point in their lives, then maybe he would fully fund the civil rights divisions. He would not cut programs that could go a long way to fostering the ability for all different people to work together and come together.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, your reaction. The Trump administration says that the university's leadership acted with deliberate indifference towards the harassment of Jewish students. Is now targeting or perhaps threatening their accreditation. Your reaction.
You know, all New Yorkers deserve to feel safe no matter who they are. As Speaker, I've allocated over $18 million to combat anti-Semitism in New York City. As mayor, I will continue to combat anti-Semitism within the city of New York. We have got to come against this Trump administration who is now terrorizing our college students, our students across the country. We have to have a mayor who will stand up. I've been that speaker that will stand up. As mayor, I will continue to stand up against Donald Trump. Our students deserve to be in safe spaces on all of our college campuses.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Adams.
They all gave bad
Mr.
answers.
Landon. Apologies.
This is a
Except for
frightening
Zohran.
time for Jews, and I feel it really personally after the flame throwing in Boulder, Colorado, and the 2 murders in Washington, D.C. I go to a lot of Jewish communal events, and you can't just be looking over your shoulder. So I've got a really detailed plan for how we're going to deal with hate crimes and anti-Semitism in New York City. But let's be clear, Donald Trump, he platforms white nationalists and anti-Semites all the time. This has nothing to do with keeping anyone safe and trying to discredit Harvard or Columbia is about destroying higher education and democracy.
Thank you, Mr. Landon.
Won't keep Jews safe.
Ms. Ramos.
Look, McMahon is no educator, and Trump has no interest in funding our education. He is trying to make our education less accessible to students. I do wish Columbia University fought the way Harvard has. We have to stand up to Trump.
Okay, that's a real answer. That's a real fucking answer, not shaming Columbia and saying, like that Tilson nitwit said, like, oh, they should have caved into Trump harder. They should have acted sooner to cave into Trump. And she's saying, no, Columbia should have done what Harvard did and say, fuck off, Trump. That's the answer.
We have to be willing to fight back, to sue, and that is exactly
okay,
why
so
we
the
do as
fake
your mayor
progressive and Zohran gave a
keeping
real answer.
our
That's
Jewish
about it.
students safe, our Muslim students safe, and that we are fighting bigotry at every turn. There is no room for the skyrocketing
And thank you for
anti-Semitism that we're seeing
mentioning Muslim students, because holy fuck.
Mr. Byron.
It like anti-Semitism might be on the rise, but like Islamophobia has risen. It's been up there for a long fucking time.
There has been a clear and unequivocal rise in anti-Semitism in this city and across this country. And we have to be just as clear and unequivocal in calling it out and rooting it out wherever it rears its ugly head. That is what I'm going to do as mayor. But come on, this is New York City. Our Jewish friends and our neighbors, they make our city what it is. Kindergarten through 8th grade, I went to school next to Beth Rivka. That is part of what makes our city great. This is a shameful, unconstitutional overreach by this Trump administration, and it is pattern and practice for what they have done all across our city and country.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to stay in the area of Columbia University with our next question and Sally Goldenberg.
Thank you, David. The case of Mahmoud Khalil, a permanent U.S. resident who helped lead pro-Palestinian protests, drags on in the courts. The Trump administration wants to deport Khalil, accusing him of supporting Hamas, a terrorist group, and making Jewish students feel less safe on campus. They say he's a threat to foreign policy. He was arrested and detained, but has not been formally charged with a crime, and he says he's done nothing wrong. We're looking for a very short answer here, and we'll begin with you, Mr. Mamdani. Do you believe that Mr. Khalil should be set free or deported?
He should be set free. He should be at home with his wife Nora and their young child. And the fact that he is still in Louisiana is an abomination. It's an attack on our First Amendment. And it is clear, another example of Donald Trump weaponizing the very real issue of anti-Semitism to then throw Palestinian New Yorkers into detention facilities and not even tell us what the crime is that they're charged with.
Thank you. Mr. Tillerson.
I can't answer the question without knowing all the facts right now. It certainly looks like another case. Stop, let me finish. It looks like another case of Trump administration overreach. They need to prove their case and show that he has ties.
What do you mean knowing all the details? What do you mean knowing all the details? He was a student. The Trump administration openly claimed that he never broke the law. What details are you looking for? Like, was his... I guess this guy is saying, like, maybe we can deport people for protesting. It depends on what kind of protests they did. Like, maybe we can deport people for free speech. It depends what kind of free speech they did. Like, that's what it sounds like.
Terrorism that would justify via due process revoking his green card and deporting him. I don't think the Trump administration will be able to do that, and therefore he should be set free. But they need to make their case.
Thank you, Mr. Cuomo.
Oh, my God.
This is a continuation of Trump eroding democracy, chipping away at due process. He should be released. He should be released immediately. He shouldn't have been detained in the first place.
Mr. Myrie.
He should be immediately set free.
Ms. Ramos.
We have due process in our Constitution for every person. Mahmoud Khalil is no exception. He belongs home with his family, just like Andrea Hernandez and so many others who have been unlawfully abducted by ICE.
Mr. Lander.
Mahmoud Khalil should be at home with his family, and so should Dillard Contreras, a New York City public high school student that ICE tricked and then arrested and is trying to deport. We've got to stand up, make sure folks have legal services, and then New York City has their back.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mahmoud Khalil should be released immediately.
Amazing.
There is no due process.
This was the easiest question in the world, and that Tillerson guy still couldn't get it right. He still came off sounding like a conservative nitwit. Oh my God.
America. And that is why we all have to put
I'm amazed.
this chaotic Trump administration. It cannot be allowed.
That was the easiest question in the world.
More families, to harm more individuals.
They might have all
committed no crime.
They might have all asked, like, do you think Trump is a bad guy? And then they all say yes right away. And then Tillson's like, well, I would need to know all the information regarding this to answer. Like, it's such an easy question.
This should be unacceptable to every American and everyone that lives in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer.
As a Jewish American whose wife works at the Jewish Museum in Lower Manhattan fighting the Holocaust, fighting to make sure we remember the Holocaust, I will say unequivocally that taking this man off the streets and others off the streets without any charges or
that's good. That's good.
Direct horrifying moment.
That's
for our Constitution.
I was like, why the hell is he bringing up Israel? But he's bringing it up to compare what ICE is doing to what the Nazis did. That's good. That's good.
Trump should be ashamed of himself.
That's
for doing
solid.
this.
Mr. Blake.
Mahmoud should be home with his family. Full stop. It's really that easy, Whitney. Extended on this is the appreciation and understanding that whether it be Dylan from the Bronx or any of our communities, we should not believe that a convicted felon president is actually going to ever honor the Constitution. It's the reason why we have to make sure we protect our immigrants and have more lawyers at our immigration hearings, because we should actually know where individuals are so they have a chance to fight for their own justice.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. We're moving on to a subject that none of you are discussing much on the campaign trail, but it could reshape the city in the next few years, and that is the rapid advance of artificial intelligence. It could improve many things in the city, but it could also eliminate thousands of jobs. So the next mayor will likely have some opportunities to replace some city workers with AI technology, and in the process, save hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. AI will certainly be on the table when city labor contracts expire. So here's the question. Is there an area where you would consider replacing city workers with AI if it saves tax dollars? And would you also offer any protections to city workers? You'll have 30 seconds to answer. We'll begin with you, Mr. Mamdani.
Well, I think Andrew Cuomo would tell you that he's already replaced a campaign worker who would have written his housing policy with AI because he had it written by ChatGPT. I can tell you that I'm proud to be endorsed by the labor union representing the largest number of city workers, DC 37. And I'm proud of that because my approach to artificial intelligence will be one where we can find efficiencies in the contracts and consultants that we work with as a city, but we are not going to use this language of artificial intelligence as a justification for further layoffs of city workers.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani, time. Thank you. Mr. Tilson?
Yeah, I think actually AI is going to be a home run for this city because we are second only to Silicon.
Of course you think AI is going to be a home run. Of course you fucking think that, you fucking ghoul.
Silicon Valley, the sort of tech hub, the East Coast tech hub for a lot of these West Coast companies. So whatever we might lose in some jobs, I think we're going to gain if we're smart, if we roll out the carpet, because we have the knowledge workers here to attract these entrepreneurial businesses. But we've got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot with left-wing madness, like driving away Amazon and the 40,000 jobs that they wanted to
Holy
bring
shit.
here. And lastly, I'll say we can use AI to bring a lot of permitting by the city online to
Thank you, Mr. Tilson. Mr. Cuomo, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I am the candidate on the stage who's endorsed by more labor unions than anyone else, over 650,000 working men and women, and I'm proud of it. AI is undeniable. It's coming. There's I think, a tremendous opportunity for economic development here in New York by bringing AI to New York and bringing those businesses here. The West Coast doesn't have a franchise.
So any time that Cuomo's answer sounds the same as Tilson, you have to think to yourself, why does Cuomo sound like a Republican?
You hear a lot of four-letter words here. You hear free, you hear taxes. You don't hear jobs. We need opportunity, we need jobs, and we want to reorganize.
Taxes isn't a four-letter word.
AI can help, but we want to protect jobs.
Taxes is not a four-letter word.
Yeah, I'm the proud son of a city worker. My dad taught special education in the Bronx for 22 years. I would not be who I am today without it, without what he fought for and what he did for students every day. I believe we have so many city workers that are doing their absolute best to serve this city. We actually have thousands of vacancies in our city workforce now, so I want to hire more city workers to get them to do it. Of course, AI is going to have a role to play going forward. We have to all play a role in ensuring that this is an industry that grows in our city. One way we're going to make us attractive
Thank you,
is
Mr.
1 million homes over the next 10 years.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
I wrote the law to protect our artists, our actors, image and likeness from AI's use through movie studios. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to put the power in our workers' hands to help us lead the transition into the use of artificial intelligence. We can't be Luddites, but we do have to make sure that the workers have a say as we make those transitions, especially when I want to transition them and repurpose.
So her answer is literally the opposite of Tilson's, because what she's saying is, I want to make sure workers have power as AI is being adopted into the economy. Whereas Tilson's answer was, we need to make sure we're attracting entrepreneurs and like investors and companies to New York, which means making sure that like the labor laws are loose, that they can do what they want with workers. That, for example, one of the reasons that Amazon Place was chased out of town is because Amazon has a pretty extensive history of union busting and doing all kinds of terrible things to employees if they try to organize against Amazon. So she's saying, I want to give workers more power and more rights with respect to AI. And like, that's exactly what all those companies don't want. So I just want to like point out that what Cuomo and Tilson said are like the diametric opposite of what she's saying. It's the exact opposite. She's saying let's like, if you let artists have like, you know, veto over their content being used in any kind of AI, that's going to scare, just as an example, that's going to scare more AI companies away from New York, right? But, you know, you don't need bad companies in New York. You can do it with, you can do it with worker cooperatives if you want to, all worker cooperatives, right? Like, you don't need rich entrepreneurs to lead you don't need to attract those billionaires to lead the AI, growth.
Them for mental health capacities where we have deep shortages.
Mr. Lander?
3 strategies I've proposed to use AI and technology to make government more efficient that won't cost any jobs but will save us money. Last year, we paid out over $2 billion to settle 12,000 claims. I have an RFP in the field to use machine learning and AI to find patterns, put it on the books of the agencies that cause it so we can actually reduce that. Second, we should have NYCHA vendor scorecards that enable residents to rate the repair vendors that come into their units. And we're not doing that right now. We could make much better use of our taxpayer dollars
Thank you,
by
Mr.
going
Lander.
with the vendors who actually get the work done.
Thank you.
And
Ms.
third,
you're up.
she says I got 15. Okay.
Oh,
I got the 15 seconds.
sorry, mixed
No.
signals.
Okay. I got one more idea for the next time.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Ms. Adams?
I'm not a career politician. I come out of the world of corporate America, so I know the benefit of technology. I actually used to teach tech in another life, so I know the benefits of AI. I think it's something that we need to embrace as New Yorkers. I think that it's something that can bring a lot of profits into New York City. That said, we should not balance AI along with the release of our workers that can do such a great job and are doing such a great job for our city. There is a balance here. As mayor, I will reckon that balance and reconcile that balance so that we do not lose.
Thank you, Ms.
We are
Adams.
training our workforce towards embracing AI.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer.
Look, I think AI is a great opportunity for the New York City economy, and we should embrace it. But we also have to know that with any new technology comes the job of the mayor to protect our workers and our citizens. And I don't think it's an either-or question. I think AI can come in and actually have a benefit to the city workforce. Imagine training new kids at CUNY and places to get into the tech economy. This is one vehicle to do it. Obviously, as mayor, you have to worry about the abuses. I will do that. My record as a pro-labor elected official, borough president, controller is without question, and I believe we can manage this.
Okay. Mr. Blake, I'm sorry, I jumped that. Mr. Blake, you have the final word. That was my mistake.
Our campaign theme is tomorrow begins today, and that's the epitome of when we talk about for AI. As a small business owner, which I've managed more than 15,000 people across the country over the years, it's the appreciation of groups such as Adventure or National Gem Consortium or the Knowledge House, so we can be very intentional how AI can be utilized for good. I would say also specifically, we need technology for good. You can track a flight or food, but you cannot track closing a residential repair in your home. So we have to find better ways. And to your last part of your question, you can do that and equally create jobs by reducing regulation and red tape at the same time.
Candidates, thank you. We have a few short questions, lightning round questions, some call them, just to get a glimpse of your thinking on some of the issues that are relevant to New Yorkers. So New Yorkers are feeling stressed about housing in the city, as you've all alluded to, as we know. How much do you pay each month for rent or a mortgage? We'll go left to right. Ms. Adams?
Our home is paid. I'm a homeowner.
Okay. Mr. Lander?
We have
Wait, sorry, I want to just.
The mayor to protect kids at CUNY and
I never saw Zoran's answer.
now save us
Did
money.
he just give a quick? Did he just give a short answer? We'll skip
transition
ahead
into
again in
the
a sec.
Play going not.
I too bring a lot of permitting by the
As a justification for further layoffs of city
Oh,
workers.
he did it first. Okay.
I think Andrew Cuomo would tell you that he's already replaced a campaign worker who would have written his housing policy with AI because he had it written by ChatGPT. I can tell you that I'm proud to be endorsed by the labor union representing the largest number of city workers, DC 37. And I'm proud of that because my approach to artificial intelligence will be one where we can find efficiencies in the contracts and consultants that we work with as a city, but we are not going to use this language of artificial intelligence as a justification for further layoffs of city workers.
Okay,
We are
Mr.
actually going to
Mamdani,
protect those
time.
workers.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Nothing about fucking. We need to fucking work with entrepreneurs or some
So I know
bullshit.
the benefits of AI. I think it's something that we need to embrace as New Yorkers. Release of
To know that with any new technology comes the job. City work controller is without question.
Manage more than 15,000. You can track a flight
let's just
or
skip.
food.
We're just gonna skip
So
ahead.
New Yorkers are feeling stressed about housing in the city, as you've all alluded to, as we know. How much do you pay each month for rent or a mortgage? We'll go left to right. Ms. Adams?
Our home is paid. I'm a homeowner.
Okay. Mr. Lander?
We have a mortgage, a home with one rental unit. The total.
She have like said, but if I wasn't a homeowner, this is you know what I mean? I don't know. That was weird.
Total mortgage on the house, $3,300.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ramos?
We rent, we pay $2,500 a month.
Okay. Mr. Myron?
Sir, in a rent-stabilized apartment I grew up in, $1,300.
Mr. Cuomo?
$7,800.
Mr. Tilson?
I own and pay about $5,000 a month in maintenance and taxes.
Mr. Mamdani?
$2,300 for my one-bedroom in Astoria.
Mr. Blake?
About $1,800 for the home that I own with our family.
Okay. Mr. Stringer?
I'm getting ripped off $6,400 a month.
Property tax reform.
Come on, come
I can do it.
All right, thank you. Helicopter traffic around Manhattan is a constant debate. It's a complaint for many. Should helicopter traffic be limited? We'll go right to left. Mr. Stringer?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Absolutely.
Mr. Mamdani?
Yes, we should ban all non-essential helicopter travel.
Mr. Tilson?
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Cuomo?
It should be limited, yes, sir.
Tilson gave a right answer. Tilson gave an answer that wasn't bad, that wasn't wrong. It was the easiest shit ever. Maybe at this point he's just like, you know what? Like, I need to like not embarrass myself more. I don't know, but he actually did one that was good, amazing.
Especially out of Westchester.
Mr. Myrie?
Yes, and I've co-sponsored legislation in the state to that effect.
Okay. Ms. Ramos?
Stop the chop.
Mr. Lander?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Adams?
Already doing the work. We've already passed a bill in the City Council.
Okay. The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Boo!
Mr. Lander, sorry.
Boo! Israel? Oh my god, out of all the places you could pick as a Democratic candidate right now, boo! That's brutal. Unless she means Saudi Arabia, in which case hilarious. But no, she means Israel. Boo! Boo! If she was doing a Mecca pilgrimage, that would be based, but I know she's not. She's like, I want to go fillet some Zionists. Thanks. Great idea, lady.
Boy, what Trump is doing to Canada, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, see, Canada is a country that actually does trade with New York. Canada is like a country that actually matters with respect to New York. She just lost. I'm D-ranking her. I wish I could give people negative rankings because that was terrible.
I'd love to meet Claudia Sheinbaum, but I'd probably head to Colombia, to my parents' homeland.
Aw, cute.
Myrie?
I am the proud son of 2 Caribbean immigrants. I represent a robust Caribbean constituency. I'd like to go to the Caribbean as my first visit.
See, I think what that lady was I think what Ramos wants to do is just get Latinos to like not rank Zohran. She's catering so hard. When they asked a question about immigrants, she literally answered in Spanish. And it's like, I know there's a lot of Puerto Ricans around, and now those aren't really even immigrants technically, I guess. I don't know how that works, but I know that there's like a decent Latin, although like I said, it is mostly fucking Puerto Ricans. It's not like foreign, people, but like it's still such a blatant cater, and I think she's just doing that because now she's gonna try to get sympathies of Latin American people, then she's gonna drop out and endorse Cuomo, and it's the dirtiest thing ever, right? I just don't like go to fucking Mexico, you fucking tool from New York. Yeah, Canada was a real answer. That's like an answer that's like rational. Israel and Colombia are not.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the
Wait, what did he say? Sorry, we missed.
I am the proud son of 2 Caribbean immigrants. I represent a robust Caribbean constituency. I'd like to go to the Caribbean as my first visit.
Okay, cater. Your parents were from Jamaica. We get it.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Wow, Cuomo sucks as well. Cuomo sucks so much. I think that lady on the left is going to endorse him too.
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest
Oh, he sucks.
allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
The global war on terror. Israel's war on terror. Israel are the terrorists.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Damn, that was a good answer. That was such a good... He just made them look like fools. Cuomo, I would go to Israel. Tilson, I would go to Israel. Mamdani, I would stay right here and help New Yorkers. I just came a little.
Can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I've said in a UJA questionnaire that I believe that you need not travel to Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers. And that is what I will be doing as the mayor. I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers.
Wait, so she's actually mad he didn't say Israel. She's actually like... They are so incredibly biased. Like, the moderator's not okay with that answer. Like, wait, you're not going to visit Israel?
I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe.
Holy shit! She won't leave him alone. She won't leave him alone. What? That has nothing to do with this question. She's actually like, who cares about letting these other people answer? Let's just grill Mamdani about Israel. This is, even Fox News viewers, even like the lowest IQ conservative people you could think of, they even see this and they're like, what? That's seems a little bit sketchy.
Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't,
he won't
say it has a right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very
clear. And his answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike you, I answer questions very directly.
All right,
and I want to be very clear. I believe every state should be a state of equal rights.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr. Blake, where would you go on your first foreign visit as mayor of New York?
My full name is Michael Alexander Blake. I'm named after Michael Manley Alexander Bustamante. So, of course, I'm going to go to Jamaica to mash up the place, my fellow patois Jamaican.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. He couldn't resist. Look, he's so happy with himself. He could not resist.
Mr. Stringer?
Maybe I'll go with you.
It would be a great trip.
It would be a great trip.
All right, I'm sorry.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family. And
shut up.
It could coincide with my young son Miles' bar mitzvah.
You were right, B. He totally did save it for the next. He really he couldn't mention Jamaica in his last answer because he had to like save up his Jamaica juices for whatever the hell weird pandering that was.
What's your order? Mr. Cuomo, we'll start with you.
Gabby's in Queens.
Mr. Meyer.
Actually insane how many of them said Israel, though. At a time when 60 or 70% of the Democratic base, I mean, to be fair, there's probably, like, I would assume New York on average is a little more sympathetic to Israel, but the majority of Democrats in New York do not support Israel. They have more sympathies with Palestine. So the fact that so many of them still are willing to say Israel, and when Mamdani says, I won't go anywhere, the lady pressed his fucking ass, like she was attacking him. And let's be clear, that was the same lady who's been constantly retweeting Cuomo's staffers anti-Zohran tweets. Like it's they're not even hiding the bias. They're not even trying to hide the bias. It's just gross.
Gino's Pizza, Flatbush Ave.
Ms. Ramos.
Louise on Baxter Avenue in Elmhurst.
Mr. Lander.
DeFar is in Midwood.
Ms. Adams.
Alba, Queens Boulevard.
Mr. Stringer.
It's Kid's Choice, Joe's.
Mr. Blake.
Vinny's, Grand Concourse, Burnside.
Mr. Mamdani.
I grew up in Morningside Heights, so I have to say Coronets.
Okay.
And Danino's in Staten Island.
Okay. All right. And real quickly, this
you would go to Staten Island. No hate to Staten Island.
We already heard this from one. To the Knicks firing their head coach, Tom Thibodeau. Miss Adams. Thumbs down. Mr. Thumbs down. Thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Our goal is to win the finals.
Okay.
It's not to get to the
Thank you all.
finals.
Thank you all for a spirited debate.
Ooh, Blake.
Again, we thank the candidates for an informative evening tonight. We also thank the New York City Campaign Finance Board. Urge you to check out their website.
What is this Politico lady blankly staring off at? The rest of them are looking at the camera. She's just like looking troubled off into the distance.
NYCvotes.org.
So yeah, this lady is just a fascist base. They were all pretty terrible. They were all pretty terrible.
Importantly, you'll learn more about ranked choice voting, which is how the nominees for mayor will be selected. For all of us here at NBC New York and Telemundo 47 and Politico, go vote June 24th.
You see how as soon as the debate ends, Cuomo goes to shake Tilson's hand and then not any. Watch.
For all of us here at NBC New York, at Telemundo 47 and Politico,
look at this.
Go vote.
Hey, man, you did a great job there. You did a great job doing nothing but being very conservative and insane and saying that we just need more police to stop crime and attacking Zohran at every answer, even when it didn't relate to anything. You notice Zohran not gonna shake Tilson's hand. Not gonna shake Tilson's hand. Gonna shake Cuomo's hand because he's classy. Cuomo's not gonna shake his hand because Cuomo's a piece of shit. Because Cuomo is a piece of shit. Sweet dreams, guys. Thanks for watching. We're going to talk more about this stuff soon because it's kind of important, but we're going to try to make it fun. I like to laugh at these things because they're very absurd. Sometimes you just gotta laugh. Sometimes life is just kind of silly. And this has been one of those times. So thank you for being there with me. At the very least, none of us are alone in this. All right. Thank you all. Stay safe. We will do a similar series of things tomorrow. Okay?